Good morning, everyone. The need for basic knowledge of how judicial forums deal with cases relating to medical negligence is of absolute necessity for medical professionals. Judicial forums, while seeking to identify delinquents and delinquency in the cases of medical negligence, aim at striking a careful balance between the autonomy of a doctor to make judgments and the rights of a patient to be dealt with fairly. To get more insight into this, we have with us Professor O.V. Nandimat, Professor of Law at National Law School of India University, specializing in health law, corporate law, finance sector regulations, and tort law. He is also currently a chair professor of think tank on health, which interacts with state government, central government, National Medical Commission, etc. I welcome you, sir. May I request Professor Siddharth Satpathy, Professor and Head, Department of Hospital Administration, All India Institute of Medical Science, Delhi, and Shri Shankar Panikar, sir, Advocate and Insolvency Professional, who is also a faculty here at Amrita in the Department of Hospital Administration, to chair this session.
Thank you very much. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much. I am grateful to the Amrita Institute of Medical Sciences and the Academy of Hospital Administration for giving me this opportunity to chair this session digitally, although from a remote location. I take this opportunity to, you've already introduced Dr. Nandimat, and I request him to, make his presentation.
Thank you very much, sir. I only hope I'm audible. Am I, sir?
Now, the topic is actually a very, very interesting, sort of topic because there are four things which have been sort of rolled into one. I don't know how much time, of course, we are giving Professor Nandimat because they are interrelated, but at the same time, there are subtle differences, between each one of them. Jurisprudence is a term which, has a contextual meaning. And the original meaning of the word jurisprudence is the theory or philosophy of law. But commonly, we understand jurisprudence as a system of, or the legal system of a particular country. Now, coming to negligence, that of course has been defined over the last, century or so. We are all aware that, negligence has got connotations with regard to civil as well as criminal negligence. The civil negligence are a bundle of rights which the particular country where such a negligence happens is has enacted laws, and the criminal negligence part extends beyond the concept of civil negligence. So criminal negligence is where the person is responsible and you are infringing upon somebody else's rights in a criminal sort of way. The third thing, of course, which has added and has become very, very important during this pandemic is digital health. Now, if we look at digital health in the context of our country, it was in 2018 that the government had sought the comments from the various stakeholders, and we had a brainstorming session done at the All India Institute of Medical Sciences when the National Digital Health Blueprint was being sort of like the architecture of that was being framed. Now, in that 2-hour brainstorming session, there were a number of issues that we identified, and we had sent a letter also to the government, which was the nodal ministry, which was preparing the digital health blueprint. And after that, of course, some things have happened, but I'm not really sure as to whether whatever issues that we raised in that communication, offhand I can recall 3 or 4 things. The first one was the sensitivity of the information and the privacy part, because health is very, very personal to each one of us. And so there is a slight dichotomy with regard to medical records. The contents of the medical records, for that the hospital is the custodian, but the contents are actually, of the patient. So this dichotomy is always there when it comes to, like medical records. But I believe, although we have made some progress in our country, but it's a long, long journey that we have to traverse before we can actually say that we have, transformed the manual, health record systems into the electronic health records. The ministry, I believe, has recently, one notification has come regarding some common electronic health records which should be followed, but it is more in the form of a guideline notification, because I understand and I know that for a fact that not many hospitals in the country have actually, like walked the talk and have converted their records into a purely digital, record system. So it's a mishmash or a mixed system, to the best of my knowledge, in most public sector hospitals that I am aware of. Maybe some of the private sector hospitals may have moved few steps forward, but to the best of my knowledge, none of the hospitals has 100% electronic health records or digital health, from that point of view. The BOG of the Medical Council of India, just at the advent or the cusp of the pandemic in March 2020, notified the Telemedicine Guidelines, which actually form, as we see today, the main crux or the document, the legal document through which telemedicine services are being provided by a lot of healthcare providers. There is this government initiative also, which is available, and people can do that. They can use the tele consultations, which they have used during the COVID pandemic. I don't see him coming. Okay. So that would be my, sort of like thoughts on the digital health, side of the topic that has been given.
All right, I'll just
when
add.
we
Yeah.
yeah
Go ahead, sir. Go ahead.
Please. When we add up all these four aspects, what we get is a mix which is very, very contextual, and it is very difficult to actually draw a clear-cut set of guidelines that if you do this, you will never face any medical negligence, case in your career or something like that. It's quite difficult to actually draw such a system of a checklist sort of thing, which we can give as a, as a handout to healthcare providers. So things can go wrong, definitely, but yes, if the intent and if the basic premises are correct, then the chances of criminal negligence being filed against medical professionals, to my mind, is relatively rare. So I can, the co-chair can probably, also share his thoughts till the time that Dr. Nandimat is able to make his presentation.
Yeah, let Dr. Nandimat join us. Before that, we'll just quickly look at the other perspective of this particular topic, which is delivering affordable healthcare versus criminal and medical negligence. Friends, the fact of the matter is all of us are in this country and we have to follow the Constitution of India. There is something called Directive Principles of Social Justice, which essentially talks about certain things which we have to take care when you devise a law or when you talk about think about new laws. So therefore, and if you look at the Part 3 of the Constitution, it talks about certain most critical, article, which I'll just read out. Article 21, no person shall be deprived of his life or personal liberty except according to procedure established by law.
Absolutely.
So therefore, what does that mean? End of the day, you cannot take arbitrary decision. There has to be a process. There has to be a written things. No, we were just hearing what Dr. Ravi Kannan was, explaining to us. It's an amazing achievement. All this is possible because there is a system, a discipline. I was so fortunate that I was working with a couple of great banks where we also have multiple things coming up. So end of the day, we need to have a, sort of processes and written
Absolutely.
documentation. It's like, saying the thing again and again, so that end of the day, everyone takes care of that. When you're talking about affordable, no, when you split the each component of this particular topic, I think Professor Nandimat has come. So are you audible?
Am I audible now?
Yes, you are.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Sorry, sir. Actually, I had to do a bit of errand to get it fixed. I don't know what exactly was the problem. Any which ways, without any loss of time,
Yeah, all is good. All is good. I mean, please go ahead, sir. I mean,
okay.
Yeah, perfect.
E-Dice is always yours.
Okay, thank you very much, sir, for bearing with me. I really appreciate that. So, very good morning to all of you, ladies and gentlemen. And thank you for keeping the organizers on tender hooks because of some sort of a technology glitch, which sort of lively demonstrates what kind of a challenges in real life we would have while adopting, digital health provisioning things. So without any much of ado, I would try to show you this first slide. This slide actually tells you how I was at loss and I was the contributor to this when the handout or ICT material was sent to me by the organizers. At two places, they had two different titles mentioned for me. The first one is delivering affordable healthcare versus criminal liability and medical negligence. This was mentioned in one place. And in the schedule, it was shown that jurisprudence and digital health, medical negligence and criminal liability, somehow owing to my own, sort of schedule, I did not really care to look at the first one or the discrepancy. So more than blaming anybody else, I had to blame myself for a contributory negligence. But I have neither taken the first one or the second one. I have fine-tuned it to the third one, and I had done it by taking the liberty without compromising on the content. I call it as liability for digital health provisioning. So when you adopt technology or embrace technology, either as a doctor or a hospital, what kind of technological liability, what kind of liability issues that may arise? That is what I believe, the audience wanted to hear from me. See, I would simply start with this particular slide, if you allow me. When we are talking of digital health provisioning, ladies and gentlemen, I wanted to draw your attention that it might mean multiple things. Or in other words, I must say as a lawyer that when we are talking of digital health provisioning, we may be probably talking about one of these things or a couple of these things or combination of these things. The first one is we may be talking about electronic health records, is it not? That is, you try to maintain the health records in a digital format. You may maintain it locally or you may maintain it at a hub where everything, every single medical record comes and gets stored. The second one is we may be probably talking about digital health ID, which is probably mapped to certain of your other IDs like Aadhaar, PAN, so on and so forth. So every individual would be issued a digital health ID, which he would be using at the time of seeking medical help or medical services. We may be talking about remote health monitoring, like you have lot of wearables. Some are monitored at the other end by the qualified medical doctors, or they may be for entirely my own consumption or consumption of the doctor when I consult him later. So this is what I call as remote health, monitoring. Then you have telemedicine. But the last point I have on this slide, according to me, is more important. When you are talking of digital health provisioning or technology-based health provisioning, you may be talking of permutations and combinations of all these. You may be talking about electronic health records. You may be talking about providing telemedicine services, or you may be even talking about digital health ID, remote health monitoring, so on and so forth. So for our purpose, ladies and gentlemen, to make our journey further very easy and simple, I have adopted a functional definition. I say, when I talk about digital health provisioning for my, what you call a stock purpose, you can say it is use of ICT. And for my student friends, I try to elaborate ICT as information communication technology, although it is quite rampantly used terminology. Use of ICT along with other technologies to provision health services. This is how I try to have a functional definition before I proceed any further. So with your leave, I wanted to really tell you today, when I talk about digital health architecture, there are three very important or prominent players. I don't want to make it something little more complicated, because you have already heard from some of the technology experts. You have heard from probably the best in the country, the policy practitioners, technologists, etc. They had already had a good presentations made out to you. But I try to take a very simple architecture. You have a creator of a technology. It may be part of device. That means you are using a particular device where technology or digital technology, etc., is embedded. Or it may be a software technology which you would be using for the purpose of provisioning the healthcare. So all of them put together form one of the critical components of this architecture. I call them as creator of a technology. Then the second one is user of that technology. Here, for our purpose, ladies and gentlemen, please, lend your ears to me. I wanted to stress it, that when I'm saying user of the technology, I'm referring to either hospitals or caregivers or doctors, because they would be using the technology to provision healthcare to the final, participant in this architecture, the ultimate consumer. So if you are interested in knowing about the law, if you are interested in knowing about your liability, when you try to provision healthcare by adopting ICT or technology, how it is going to, impact. That is what your ultimate lookout, is it not? That is what you are expecting me to say. That is why you need to have this, what you call as architecture in your mind. That would come very handy to you. Now, what I do, ladies and gentlemen, I take again these three in a vertical, format and say, creator of a technology and user of technology jurisprudentially come under one part of the law. Namely, I would say there are two very important developments. We call it as common law developments. A lawyer friend of mine who is chairing, who is a co-chair, would understand it very easily. But for the sake of, my student friends, young doctors and others who may be novice regarding law, I would say, we call them as part of common law. So when I say common law, I may be meaning three things. One is it is unwritten part of the law. That means it has developed as a culture. We call it as common law. Second one, when common law is developed, the second perspective I wanted to share with you is it develops out of common sense. So you face a problem which is unprecedented, or you face a problem and you are convinced this problem needs to be solved. And if there is no written provision of law, you apply your common sense and try to resolve that problem. That is why we use the term common law. And the third one is it is a judge-made law. That is another very important perspective you need to bear in your mind. What do you mean by, judge-made law? The judge always is tasked to apply the law and solve the challenges that are posed before him. So when somebody goes before the court and he says, I don't know what law you would apply. I don't know what law I need to really plead under, but I have been damaged like this. I have been injured like this. So please provide me some kind of a solace or help. At that time, what judge does? He either applies the written part of the law, which we call a statute-based law. And if the statute-based law is not available, he would try to provide what is called as, common law. And there are two very important developments in the areas of common law. One is negligence, and the second one is product liability. These are the principles which get applied in determining the liability of creator of a technology or user of a technology. But now the next question is how the ultimate consumer is going to be impacted. I would say more than law applying to him or law coming to his rescue, I wanted to show you this particular slide. If you see here, what I have attempted to say is ultimate consumer is treated as a king as far as the law or legal framework is concerned. So when he goes to the court or when he goes to so-called your consumer commissions now, he would not try to talk about law. He would try to talk about his agony. He would just submit it to the person there, either to the tribunal or to the judge. He would submit and say, I underwent a particular treatment. I don't know whether doctor gave it by his bare hands or with the assistance of technology or otherwise, but I did not get cured of my morbid condition. More than getting cured of my morbid condition, I got terribly hit by that treatment. So my interest and right, I feel, is impacted. So please help me out. This is how he surrenders himself to the court, if I may put it that way. At that time, the judge would pretty much apply the same principles which he had applied since the ages. This is the fundamental premise, or this is the fundamental jurisprudential premise I would probably beg all my audience to keep in their mind. I would slightly go further. Today, when you are looking at the landscape of technology, because I'm basically a lawyer, I don't try to make things complicated. Any technology which you use would be, resultant of different technologies being put together and harmonized. Like you have creator of one technology, one bit has been created by one technology manufacturer. Another bit is created by technology manufacturer number 2, 3, 4, so on and so forth. And all these technologies are integrated. That is why I call him as lead integrator. He is a one who becomes a sort of manufacturer of a product or manufacturer of that particular, software, and they would give it to you. And why I have shown here the Airbus? See, Airbus is an excellent example in the industry to, say he is a lead integrator. So he would source from different, as many as 23,000 points, he would collect both hardware and software, and he would integrate and create it as an Airbus. And that Airbus is going to be sold to your so-called aircraft companies. Right? It may be your Indian companies or abroad. He would sell it to the ultimate user of the technology. So here in this particular case, user of technology, as we all agreed together, is the doctor or the hospital while provisioning his health services. Now, he will provide, that user of a technology will provide health services to the ultimate consumer. So it is a very, very, very sort of a complex picture or a landscape, which you must always, try to retain in your mind. But try to come from the last end or the reverse part of this picture or the slide. You have an ultimate consumer, and I always call him as a disgruntled, consumer, because he somehow feels he has got a rough deal. At that time, he will try to hold not creator 1, creator 2, creator 3, or lead integrator, etc. He will simply try to hold the user of a technology responsible. And law says, look, you are answerable because he has approached you. And if you have not done your part of the job properly, if you have not discharged your duty of care properly to the patient, you are going to be held liable. Let there be, million stages of technological revolution and development takes place. This is going to be the USP of the law. I would simply hold the doctor and the hospital responsible because there is what is called as a nexus or relationship between ultimate consumer, that is a patient, and the user of a technology. But I would also give you one more very broad sort of a thing. Here, ladies and gentlemen, I wanted to tell you there are two categories of lawyers. I always say that. A lawyer who knows about the law and the lawyer who knows how to find the law. And I will tell you, the world around us has shown us, because there are lawyers since last 300 years or more. And the lawyer who has mastered the trait of finding the law very quickly and rapidly is considered to be the most successful lawyer. Because we have in India, according to a very conservative estimate, if I use a very conservative estimate, we have around 30,000 laws, both state and central legislations put together. So is it possible humanly for me to understand each and every law? It is not. That is why we try to use what is called as jurisprudence, that is logic of the law, and we master the trait or the trick as to how to find the law. So you give me a challenge, I try to find the law applicable to that problem and then try to provide you the legal advice or the solution. So we do the same sort of a trait today, because in just about 30 minutes, I have been asked to really give you the entire jurisprudential basis. It is almost like asking me to explain Bhagavad Gita in about 30 minutes. That is why I said, rather than questing or rather than searching what law is, I would try to leave you with the trait as to how to find law with respect to the technology which you would be using. So the regulatory framework, I would divide them into two categories. The slide is already there, up. See, the first part I said common law. That means principles of negligence would be applied. Principles of product liability gets applied. And your privacy protection laws would get applied, and professional duties. Some of you might really ask, sir, we heard so much about privacy protection or data protection. Why you have put it put as a part of common law? Because in India, we do not have a specific data protection act. It is quite recently Supreme Court once again reiterated the point in Puttaswamy's judgment that individual has a fundamental right to privacy. Right, that is why I have put it in common law. But when you come to statutory law, you have criminal liability being determined by IPC provisions. But please mind you, Supreme Court has made it absolutely clear, not once, but more than once. It has made it very clear, if you wanted to hold the doctor liable criminally, that means you wanted to have the doctor put behind the bars for his negligent act, then you need to satisfy yourself that the doctor has committed what is called as gross negligence. Unless there is gross negligence, you cannot condemn the doctor for criminal liability. And once again, please bail me out for repeating it. While determining criminal liability, they would try to see whether you are grossly negligent, even if you have provided by relying upon technology and things like that. Then subject-specific statutes you have. In India, as and when the health science has grown, depending upon the scenarios, we have enacted specific or subject-specific statutes. To give you a few examples, if you are talking of medical termination of pregnancy, we have a dedicated law in India, Medical Termination of Pregnancy Act. If you are talking of human organs and tissue transplantation, in India, we have a subject-specific statute, namely Human Organ and Tissue Transplantation Act. Today, we are talking about ART law also, is it not? So we have brought the Artificial Technologies law in a first version recently. So if there is a law applicable, then I would say you need to follow that particular law specification And if you don't follow that law specification, you would be held liable. Finally, recently, you have telemedicine guidelines. And these telemedicine guidelines are attached to your ethical regulations. And these regulations are under the erstwhile, that is MCI Act. So MCI has been replaced by NMC. So these laws are coming under, the telemedicine guidelines are now deemed to be under NMC. So they are applicable. So this is pretty much the regulatory framework, ladies and gentlemen, for you. So depending upon the problem, depending upon the challenge, you need to understand where to find the law and how your quest to find law should begin. You may do it all by yourself, or you may do it with the assistance of few lawyer friends whom you may be knowing, so that you get to know very clearly and categorically what kind of a law you are interacting with and what kind of a law you need to comply with. Because, mind you, ignorance of law is no excuse. And so, last couple of minutes I wanted to say, law is evolving. We don't have a clear-cut articulation of law as of now. Law is constantly evolving, like the technology is also evolving. So what we need to do, please take a moment. Maybe my young friends can relax now, but like Dr. Satpathy, my co-chair, and other leaders in the fraternity, they need to think now. Who makes these laws? Obviously, the simple answer, like a common sense answer, is, okay, it is a general studies question. Who makes law? It is a parliamentarian. But does parliamentarian understands how this law is going to bite? How this law is going to change the discourse in the society? How is the lawmaker guided? I hope you are getting my point. This is where, rather than being at the receiving end, the leaders of the fraternity and community need to take some kind of a leadership role. And if they positively influence the lawmakers, you would have a better implementable law. So the situation is going to be helped. Otherwise, complying with the law, I have seen you start reapproaching your own protocols and you try to modify your medical protocols to suit the law, which according to me is a very, very bad scenario. And the third aspect is how externalities influence. I just would like to borrow 30 seconds of your time, ladies and gentlemen, if I may. I know before pandemic, if somebody has asked me whether telemedicine is legal or otherwise, there were two schools of thought. I belong to that school which said, oh, telemedicine, it may not be regulated, but it is perfectly all right. But there was another school of thought led by multiple lawyers, many lawyers, who said telemedicine is completely banned in India. And if you involve yourself in telemedicine, you would be, sued, or you would be, fined, or you would be penalized. So who were at the peril? The doctors didn't know whether Professor Nandimat and his school to be believed, or the other school who is asking them, saying that not to involve in telemedicine or to be believed. They were completely lost. But see the wonder that got created. Although it is a pandemic, it was an opportunity in many sense. One such opportunity is what we could have taken another 10 years to advocate for telemedicine guidelines, they became reality. So sometimes externalities also influence, provide you opportunity, and provided you use those opportunities, you can pave a positive way for your practice. How courts react? Most of the time, courts react without understanding the technical, what you call as aspects. Don't think I'm actually trying to degrade the courts and their understanding and ability. No, that is not what I'm intending to do, ladies and gentlemen. I'm only trying to say by applying sheer common sense and the sound principles of law, they try to interpret and they try to produce new rules. At that time, whether we have sufficient literature for their mind to be stormed, if we have prepared, sort of a concepts, so that even if the judge is facing a problem, he would consult the literature and he would be positively influenced to render good judgment. The best example I can give you is one of the controversial judgments by National Medical Commission, R.G. Stones. After that, everybody started, halchal mach gaya. Everybody started talking whether pre-printed consent forms are valid or not. I said, we don't have a credible and reliable kind of a literature produced in our country. And because of that, we are having these kind of judgments. And how well the consumers adapt to the technology is also going to matter. Because I may probably have a constant monitoring machine put on the body of the patient and say, don't worry, you go with this. But if the patient doesn't know how to use that apparatus properly, or how to keep that apparatus properly calibrated, I would certainly be held responsible for his ignorance as well. So there is lots and lots that need to be done, because law is at its nascent stage and it is evolving. So I have nothing much to say at this moment in time, except seeking your pardons for initial technical glitch. I'm glad we could able to overcome predominantly by your cooperation. I thank my chair as well as co-chair for bailing me out for that kind of a glitch. And thanks to the organizers for giving me this opportunity. Thank you. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Professor Nandimat. It was really a lucid, explanation, a very simple explanation of, what I think the organizers must have told you to speak about. And it was pretty clear to me, at least. So I think we can start with the questions now. Or if the co-chair would like to, say something, and then we can invite questions from the audience first and then from the digital audience.
Yeah, that is so gracious of you, sir. Now, when we have a deadly combination of a cost accountant and a lawyer, you will always cut things and see what exactly has to be read in between lines. So today we have been given a very wonderful topic, which Professor Nandimat, I don't know how best you can further deliver. He has exceedingly well, articulated the fact, without definitely not showing off his, capability of showering with case laws and all. So amazingly good presentation. But then for those people, there is another angle to particular thing. What do you mean by affordability? What do you mean by affordability for end of the day, we are talking about healthcare, and we are talking about a joint association with the government and the people. People meaning both private, public, and all those things. Therefore, now I was just wondering about your question as to how to mobilize the resources. So there are certain set of laws in India where you can actually tap that. For example, if you look at the Companies Act 135, there is something called corporate social responsibility. In fact, there is a rules for that. If you create excitement with the corporate world, especially in your area, they can chip in and probably give you some sort of resources, support for the resources. For example, if you look at whatever that has happened in post-pandemic, a lot of companies have come up. And for that, government also changed their law. Initially, there was only about central government rules. Then they chipped in state government companies and all those things. So therefore, it is some sort of a very objective way of thinking. When you're talking about affordability of a service of a company, a medical company, a healthcare company, you need to understand there is a specific law written, laid down, passed, and practiced by the Ministry of Corporate Affairs. It's cost accounting record rules. Only those that is applicable only to the corporates, a company which is having more than 100 crores turnover. But that doesn't mean that you need not get it, independently, checked by a professional, an expert. For example, if you tell me, I've personally handled a couple of things in my costing career, where the thumb rule or a sort of a benchmark cost of operations, roughly around, if you look at the medical, cost of medicine comes to around 32 to 34%. and the salary and remuneration comes to about 35 to 36%. So therefore, you are getting about 68 to 70%. And roughly, you add up the operation administration heads. End of the day, the hospital, the company leaves with only about 10 to 12% profit for the further development. Now, what can be done is line by line critical analysis of, for example, if you're talking about 100 crore turnover company and the material stock taking about 36 or 34%, 34%, so 34 crores goes to the medicines. If you're able to have control over the resources, if you're able to save at least 1%. Now, Dr. Kannan was saying about technology, onslaught of technology. It's an amazing world now. Previously, when we started doing this, the hospitals never had objective records. But with all these hospital record system, you have at least 90%. If it is okay, you have control over resources. So it all end up into the affordability. It all, for example, now the system have changed where you are giving everything as a package. You are giving everything as package. So, for example, a knee replacement will cost you about 2 lakhs or 2.35 lakhs. How can you reduce it and shift that benefit to the ultimate consumer? That is something which we have to work on. It is a continuous process. And when it comes to the other part, Dr. Nandimad was saying it's very difficult to explain Gita in 30 minutes. No need. Actually, Gita says, if you in one word you can explain Gita. You are not supposed to ask why you do and die. So therefore, Gita is very clear on that. You are supposed to do your duty and forget about the results. It will come. So that now in this case, let's look at the particular subject which we have today. I've just put it in a different word. It says the touch point is quality healthcare services with affordable prices to the maximum number of people in full compliance of rules and regulations. How is it possible? So quality, I'll just repeat it, quality healthcare services with affordable prices for the maximum number of people in full compliance of rules and regulations. Friends, my students there could definitely understand. There is no charm in doing business without violating the rules and regulations. If at all you are worried about the cost of compliance, please look at cost of non-compliance. Cost of compliance, say if it is X, with all these MCAs, income tax, GSTs, the cumulative effort of non-compliance will take you to docks. Therefore, you need to follow process. Process have to be looked again and again at regular intervals. And there are a lot of cases which I am not touching up because it will be too much of me and we have just short of time also. Therefore, Doctor, you have given an amazing presentation. Thank you so much. Lawyer is always a student. So therefore, I have personally learned a lot of things from your student. I'm leaving this audience and also, those who are in the electronic online mode. If at all you have got any questions, please do not fret to trigger.
Thank you, Professor Nandimat sir, for this very informative session. On behalf of SASH 2021, we would like to give you a memento, please, as a token of appreciation.
Thank you so much.
We would also like to give a memento to our chairperson, Professor Satpathy sir.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you. And it was actually a wonderful presentation.
May I request Babu Rao sir to please hand over a memento to our chairperson, Shankar Panerkar sir.
Moving on to the next session of the day. The economical development of health technology is rapid and each and every healthcare professional should understand it deeply. So, to provide a brief talk about economics of adopting health technologies in hospital and sustaining operations, we welcome Dr. Robinson Shenoy, Chairperson of CII Technical Committee on Health. It is our pleasure to have you, sir. He is the dynamic healthcare thought leader with more experience of proven expertise in operational excellence. To chair this session, we invite Dr. Paramhans Misra, CEO of IQ City Medical College and Hospital Durgapur, and Professor Naveen Pera, HOD KMC Manipal.
Thank you for joining this conference. Generally, healthcare organizations face the unprecedented challenges to improve quality of patient care, reducing harm, improving access, increasing efficiency, and eliminating waste. For most of these issues, we are dealing in hospitals. We require support of healthcare technology. But healthcare technology comes at a huge cost because there are many suppliers, there are many patent and copyright issues, then there are ineffective price regulations, so on. So economics is a study of how men and society end up choosing to employ the scarce resources with alternate uses and minimizing the cost. With these few introductory remarks, I open the forum to our speaker of the day, Mr. Robinson. Please go ahead, sir.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Amrita, for giving me this opportunity. I'm a great fan of Professor Robinson. We just heard him in Academy of Hospital Administration. So we request you to start with your deliberations. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Good afternoon, everyone. I would like to thank the organizers, Academy of Hospital Administrators and Amrita Institute for this opportunity to speak. It's an interesting topic. And I thought I would make it simple. So I'm sharing my screen. Can you see my screen? So it's a very big topic that, I've been asked to do, look at hospital operations, also look at technology, look at economics, look at financials. So it's not only having breadth, but also depth. So I thought instead of going into the, trying to cover the whole topic, I'll give an overview of what is practically been done in various hospitals that I have either managed or we advise on. So there's going to be some introduction and then a couple of practical examples. And then maybe I'll end up with 5 or 6 guidances. So that's the agenda for the next 30 minutes. Thank you. Let's get into the agenda. So basically, let's try and understand what is healthcare technology. Now, healthcare technology, if you look at the definitions, there are quite a few on the net and in various books. The one which I thought which was simplest is that healthcare technology is basically any IT tool or software which is designed to improve clinical outcomes, boost hospital productivity, and give new insights into what kind of medications or treatments we can provide so that the quality of care that we are providing is continuously improving. So it's a pretty simple definition. I have modified it a little, but primarily what does it relate to when we actually implement it? So this adopting business is basically about implementation. So basically, if you look at it, healthcare technology relates to data. Different kinds of data comes to us from different places. So one is operational data, which is coming from the hospital HIS, that's of different kinds. Then we have patient-related data, which comes from the patient themselves. So it could be either manually taken, like blood pressure, vitals, etc., or it could be coming through devices. Ultimately, everything is data. Now, this data is then coming to one place, and then we analyze it. Now, the analysis can happen with using different technologies. We can have the simplest one where a human interface analyzes data. We can have complex algorithms, which also can help us to analyze this data. Now, after analysis, we are supposed to take some corrective actions or measures. And that's where, again, AI can help us, or we can do it on ourselves. So basically, what matters is what kind of information is coming to us, how are we analyzing it, and then how are we using that analysis to implement decisions. Now, at top level, we are deciding on lots of things, whether it's to do with clinical technology, whether it's to do with medical technologies, whether it's as a doctor, whether I'm treating the patient properly, and as an operations head, maybe, am I running the hospital efficiently? So that's what healthcare technology is about at the simplest way. And of course, as we get deeper and deeper into these topics, we find that it's far more complex than what I just said, but that's what it is. Now, going forward, as a hospital head or a CEO or, as a hospital owner, what are we looking for when we look at hospital operations? Basically, I'm trying to make it very simple. The impact that we want to see is, can I move my hospital to the next level as far as revenues are concerned? Can I reduce cost? Can I get higher profitability? That's one major metric that I'm always looking at. The other area is, can I improve my clinical outcomes? That is to do with, the clinical part. Last but not, and then in that same thing, we are also talking about patient experience. Are my patients happy? Now, I did not add one more bullet there, and that is to do with the physicians and staff. Is my staff happy? Are they satisfied? They are very important, because ultimately they are the ones who are delivering healthcare. Then we come down to increased efficiencies. Now, when we look at increased efficiency, we are talking about optimized utilization of assets. We are talking about processes, systems, SOPs, and all of them we have heard about in the last few days. And even when we talked about the legal system, it's the SOPs and the processes which save us from litigation. So basically, you go to somebody sues us, we tell them we are following this clinical protocol, I followed this SOP, this is standardized, I have not deviated. Despite that, the result was suboptimal. Am I responsible? No. But if you violate the SOP, if you violate the clinical protocol, then you are liable to be questioned. So yes, we need to have SOPs. Last but not the least, as a hospital head, as somebody who's managing hospitals, we need to have better operational control, whether it's to do with audits, MIS, performance reviews, etc., etc. So if we look at this is what we do as hospital heads or as C-suite. And is it possible to do it without technology, without data? And that's why the question of adopting health technologies is really redundant. It's about how you're utilizing it. Whether you do it or not is no longer valid. Everybody needs technology. Now, the way HIS systems are made today are built for enterprise level hospitals. They are not meant for smaller hospitals. And that's one of the areas that, which is very interesting in the healthcare industry, that small hospitals require a minimal viable product, which to them is still not accessible despite having 100, 200 HIS providers. So there is a business possibility there. Now, going forward, what I want to say is that every hospital is unique. Every medical practice is unique. When I say unique, it is the size, it is the kind of facility, it's the kind of services that we are offering, the kind of patients that we are catering to. All of them are unique from a hospital to a hospital. So please do not copy paste things, and I will get into that guidance later. So basically, let's look at what are we looking at in terms of when we implement technology to help us move our hospitals to the next level. So basically, let's look at one hospital which is running at 85-90% capacity. ALOS is, let's say, below 4, and all the wards, OPDs are doing well. And I, as the CEO or as the management, I'm under pressure to move this hospital to the next level. That means we need higher revenue, we need higher profitability. How do I do it? What choices do I have? So what can I do? Number one, I can ask for increased capacities, which means that I will build more. Number two, I can say, okay, let me reduce ALOS further. Number three, can I look at my case mix? So all these things people try. But there is one thing that I want to talk about where, technology has really helped us. And I'm going to give you examples of real time work that we have done in hospitals. Is can we unlock capacity? So I think today my capacity is 100%. I'm using whatever, whether it's a CT, MRI, whether it's a master health check, whether it is my wards, whether it is operating rooms, whatever it is, I'm running it at 100% capacity. That's what I think. But is it possible for me to take out more capacity? So I'm going to give you one example where we talked about where we've done this, as a project in one of the hospitals that we were looking at. And this is a master health check. Most hospitals are doing master health check. So I took this as an example. I could have used radiology. I could have used operating room. I could have used lab systems, but I decided to take master health check. So first we did was we decided that we need data to understand. So there was this master health check where we were doing about between 80 to 100 health checks per day. Now you can see the figure there. It says on Monday it was 101, Saturdays was 100, rest of the days was around 80. Sundays it was 47. So we said, okay, let's collect data. So data we can collect from interviews, from the HIS, from different areas. But one thing that we use technology for was we put RFID bands on patients. Now we could track the patient inside the master health checkup area and the OPD and see where are they going, where are they waiting, what is happening to them. So based on that, so one of the most important things when we do, when we implement technology is that we need to understand what data do we really need to track? What do we need in order to, take a decision? So this is the result that we got where, we were able to see that how are patients moving around within that master health checkup area. Now we can call them patients or clients. We realized that if you look at that, the patients are waiting for almost 40% of the time. People are walking through the same area repeatedly. And interestingly, this is an OPD thing. So what we find is, this is the same thing done in an OPD patient. Patient walks about 1.6 kilometers in the OP and diagnostic area in the same visit. Something that we could never have thought of unless we had an RFID system working with us and tracking. Now that's not small. And this is the patient. And then we saw that the waiting time was 1.5 hours, approximately 1.6 hours. Value added time was just 35 minutes. So, this is where technology, in real time has been helped. And this is not simple technology. It is, you can call it simple, you can call it complex, depends on how you are utilizing it. But when you collect data, that's the way we have to understand what is our data telling us. So what did it tell us at the end? Let's take a look at it. Total time in the master health checkup, if you are putting it as percentage, the waiting time was 60%. 60% of the times the patient was waiting somewhere, either for an ultrasound or for a lab test or for, an ECG or a TMT. They was walking for about 13% of their times. Value added time was just for the test and the consultation, which was 0.6 and 0.7. So about just this much time was utilized as what we would say real value. That is only 23% of the total time that they spent. So health check time varied from 2 to 6 hours per patient. And this was a health check department which was saying we are running at capacity. We were actually saying we can't take more patients because, we can't handle so many patients. Can we unlock value then? So when you talked about economics, I'm not getting into so much of the numbers, but I'm talking about real-time value, real-time problems that we face every day. So is it possible for us to add more patients there? What can we do? So we did some little bit of, analysis. Where are the patients utilized? What kind of equipment do I have in that place? We had 3 ultrasound machines, we had a mammogram, we had all these things there, and you can see the utilization. So ultrasound 1, 71% utilization, ultrasound 2, 17% utilization. All this is data coming in from either machines themselves or from, various, through the HIS. So based on that, we did some corrections. We said, can we, improve the process so that patients don't have to walk so much? Can we improve utilization of machines? Can we just change the machines from one place to another? So we did a lot of work there. I don't want to get into details here. It's just 30 minutes. And ultimately, this is what we were able to achieve. So instead of the historic capacity of 100 patients per day, we were able to move it by 40%. So we were able to achieve 140% as the capacity. Then the time for the master health checkup used to take more than 4 hours. As we said, it was about 3 to 6 hours. Average time median was 4.5 hours. We were able to reduce it to less than 3 hours by process optimization. And last but not the least, where is the financial metrics? Now, those 40 additional master health checks that we could do in a day had a potential to give us 10.2 CR in a year. And that's significant. There is not major investment. There is no major capital investment. There is no major human resource that is moved. And still they can unlock 10.2 CR. So that's where, this data and IT and technology eventually starts making life a little more interesting for us. But remember, this is not about tech. It's about operations. It's about clinical stuff. It's not just that technology, you wave a wand somewhere and things start to happen. So this is just an example of how we can release capacity of a so-called asset, which is working according to us at 100%. But actually there is a possibility of releasing more capacity from that asset. Now you can use these principles in a CT and an MRI, in the operating rooms, everywhere. Now, some of those principles, I can't talk so much here because the topic is about adopting and seeing how we can use technology, what impact it can have. But how do we do it is a major, topic on its own. Let's look at so now that we are doing master health checks, we managed to get that kind of capacity. Now, what is the performance like? So other thing that people like to see is how are we tracking the performance. So this is a kind of a dashboard that we can create. So now the total number of the target is 140 a day, and we can now start, tracking the results. And this is something which my CFOs would like to see. Are we making enough money? So we need to also ensure that the dashboard tracks performance. Where are we getting data from? If it's possible, we should get it in real time. Your HIS should support it. How does it support it? It's tech, and that is something that is beyond the scope of this talk today. But this is what we put it. So we put targets there, and then we see, are we doing it? And then we can create different color codes for it. Like, let's say if you're on target, it's green. If it is, within 20%, it's orange. And if it's below 20%, then it's red. So that's the way, that's one example of implementation in technology, which we have actually done in one of the biggest hospitals in this country. The second area that I would like to talk about is, we said technology can help us to improve clinical outcomes and can we enhance patient experience. So one area was about hospital operations. The second area that I thought we would touch upon was clinical outcomes and patient experience. So the next 5 minutes, I will try to cover this as an example. So what can we do about compliance? Now, one of the biggest issues that we face when we are dealing with NCDs and post-op care is that patients don't comply to our post-discharge instructions. Now, there are different reasons for them. One is that they don't know enough. They need to be educated, which is very important. Then, there has to be ease of getting it, comply with whatever we have told them to do. So is it possible for us to use technology to improve compliance? It's a question that, we ask ourselves, and the answer is 100% yes. So let me give you a small example of how we can improve compliance. We need to, we can create an app, and I'll show you what this app can do. So this is an app, which goes to a patient, downloads the app, and we can provide post-op and post-discharge instructions to the patient. We give instructions in their discharge summaries. We give them small slips of paper separately printed. But do they read it all the time? Is it visual? Does it make sense to them? Have you ever looked at the medical communication that we are giving to the patients? It's full of medicalese. Something that we just assume patients would understand. It's not plain English or plain Hindi or plain whatever language we are talking about. It's medicalese. So we have to simplify that education, make it visual, make it at the right time so that patient receives it when they're actually asking that question. So when a patient goes home after surgery, what are the questions that they have? And are we answering them effectively at the right time? And can technology help? So I will show you a real kind of example. You can have an app. In that app, you can show these kind of education. So I'm just talking about some, let's say we did a post-op vagina hysterectomy. So what kind of messages can you just imagine? The patient has an app, and every day in the morning or whatever, timed messages go. So they say, can I walk after reaching home? Yes, after surgery, you can start walking after reaching home. This is coming from you. You are the doctor. Patient feels that, yes, this is what it is. Do not, you can put your messages on medications. Do not change the dosage or timings. Breathing exercises. You can show them how to do them. And all of this is going into to the patient directly, and it appears as if it's coming from the doctor themselves. So, they get higher credibility. So, you can put, these are some examples and samples of messages that doctors are already using, those who are using our services. It's just an example. How much time will it take for me to get back to service? After surgery, you can expect 2 to 4 weeks of this. You may feel tired. And then, if you're having pain, you can expect some discharge. Now, this is important. Please talk to me if you are having chills. Consult me if you have fever of 101 degrees. Consult me if you have redness or swelling, etc., at the incision site. So, all the post-op operations, instructions that we give can be given in an app or in a format which makes it easier for the patient to understand, and therefore your compliance will go up. This is just one example of how we can improve compliance. The other thing is, people talk about telemedicine. Yes, is it, so I have a problem, can I talk to the doctor? Now, we have already had a session on legality. People, my colleagues, my friends continue to give medical advice on SMS, on phone calls, on WhatsApp, despite telling that it's illegal. You will be in trouble. So please use proper formats, use a system where you can actually have the electronic health record of the patient so that you can refer to it if you are facing any problem. So ensure that you can apply digital technology and ensure that you stay compliant with the National Medical Council guidelines on telemedicine. So these are some samples of what we can actually do in real time, something that we can talk about. Let's say another example is, let's say cataract. Now these are pre-op surgeries. Let's say, please put this before the patient is coming for surgery. People have lots of questions. We have seen so many times patient come after having breakfast. Did you have something? No, I did not have anything. So they are not nil parorum. So give them that instruction right in the morning at 6 a.m. that, this message goes to the patient that this is what you're supposed to do. They have questions. So these are your post-op instructions based on the kind of surgery and protocols you face or you use, and you can provide them to the patient directly. So these are things that we face every day. Our executives, our nurses, our doctors face them every day in the OTs, in the ICUs, everywhere. So can we use technology? Absolutely. And this is what I'm saying. This is very simple. The technology cost for the patient would hardly be, let's say, about $1 a year, which is nothing, maybe, $1.50. So if we talk in INR, it's about 70 to 100 bucks. You can even reduce it. But frankly speaking, if you've done a 3.5 lakhs worth of surgery, 100 bucks for this kind of support is very simple economics. I mean, it's not even worth talking about the cost. So this is what I wanted to share with you on the kind of communication that you can give. So basically you can provide diet, advice, medications, activity, wound care, all this thing can go. Practically, this is what people are doing. Is it happening? Yes, this is not something which is theory. Now, the other thing that we are talking about when we talk about patient compliance and patient experience is, can we catch our complications in time? So let's take an example, a heart failure patient. Statistics say that congestive heart failure patients generally have an acute episode of heart failure and an admission in ICU 4 times a year. So every admission is probably 2 to 3 lakhs. Now that is avoidable. Can we avoid it? And such a simple thing, if we just take the weight of the patient every day, and we find that the weight is, let's say, increased by 1 or 2 kgs over 24 hours, we know patient is accumulating fluid. It's possible that they will go into an acute admission. Can we increase Lasix, prevent an admission? It's as simple as that. Just taking weight and creating a dashboard to monitor that parameter. So based on the surgery, based on the disease, we should be able to create customized dashboards for the patient as per the clinical condition. So I will show you a dashboard in real life. So this is our kind of stuff. I don't want to talk about us. So this is a patient. Now we create a dashboard where we can actually, what do you want to monitor? You want to monitor vitals, we want to monitor symptoms. If you have any symptom of a specific kind, please contact me. We need to monitor the tests, investigations, diet, electronic health record. So all that is available. So let's say in vitals, we should be able to modify the parameters that we would like this patient to be monitoring. And so we can add parameters, we can reduce them. We can also say blood pressure should be monitored once in a week or once in a month. And this is one example. We always see trends, as we know. So we are looking at, let's say, 3 months. This is where the peak, when did it happen? So we can actually see the trend of blood pressure or blood sugar and take corrective action. We can actually put in alarms so that, if the alarm run, if we have put in the value at some level, and if it crosses that, an alarm can actually be triggered and a message can go to the doctor. So what does it tell us? It tells us that we can actually catch a complication in time and treat it. See, I mean, you can put in different kinds of symptoms depending on the disease that we are monitoring. So, yes, can we improve clinical outcomes by using technology? Absolutely. Can we enhance patient experience? Absolutely. I just told you, I showed you 2 live examples of how it is possible to do it. So these are small examples of what is possible. I will move on to something more interesting. So we talked about how can I optimize hospital operations, number 1, and how can I unlock value. Number 2 is how do I improve patient compliance and clinical outcomes. I gave examples and I talked about the economics, not so much, but basically I'm talking about the fact that it's probably $100 for a year. So next we come down to another kind of a hospital problem that we face. I don't have enough patients. So my hospital is 50% occupied. I don't get new patients. My marketing doesn't work for me, etc., etc. Does digital work, etc.? So we have these questions that we ask ourselves, and we don't know the answers for that because it's too complex. We think it's too complex or it's too simple. So can we get more patients? Can we ensure better conversion? Patient comes to me, he gets a consultation done, but then he disappears. How do I convert that into a procedure or a surgery? It's something that engages our mind, most of our hospital management and doctors. So how do we do that? Can we use technology? So can we use sales and marketing for increasing patient queries and things like that? Absolutely. Now, it's a very complex topic. My friend said that he had heard me speak in AHA on sales and marketing. Is a small snippet. So I'll just take 2 minutes. See, when we look at marketing and sales, first of all, I don't want to get into the questions about whether it should be done or not. It has to be done. You don't have a choice today because there's so much noise in the market. Number 2, is it ethical? Absolutely, if you do it ethically. The second question is, more importantly, there is a patient's journey. A patient starts a journey where they either have a problem for which they're seeking a solution, or they don't even know that they have a problem, but get screened somewhere. So they have a problem, and then they look for a consultation. Then they try to go for diagnosis. Then there is treatment. Then there's recovery, and then there is follow-up. So this is a typical patient's journey. And marketing, my dear colleagues, is about adding value at every step of this journey. I will repeat. Marketing is about adding value to the patient at every step of this journey. It is not about what we think is marketing, which is about, pamphlets and advertisements and hoardings and things like that. That is not marketing. That's an activity. It's called ADL or BDL activity. That's tactical. But at strategic level, we have to understand that you have to add value to the patient. So there are different marketing principles. There's an outdated thought, which I find when I'm talking to hospital managements across the world. I'm not talking about India specifically. I work across the world. I find that there is a mindset which is completely dated. It's about 20 to 30 years behind times in healthcare marketing. And the worst thing is we like to keep the patient, on a need to know basis. Today, the world has changed. We need to educate the patient. Now, sometimes we believe the patient has come from Google, and he's a consulted Dr. Google, so he's going to ask me 1,000 questions. Best method of answering and shutting them up is by answering his questions in a very effective manner. And I said we could educate the patient. Now, how can you educate the patient? Again, I can tell you, I'll give you an example of how you can use technology to educate patients. So let's take bariatric education. Again, it's an app. You use an app. This is your doctor, and you say, these got 25 questions, all of them answered here. What is bariatric surgery? This is bariatric surgery. There are different kinds of bariatric surgery. This is how it is done. You can put a video. This is going directly into the patient's phone. He can access it whenever they want to. Naturally, this will help the patient to understand what is bariatric surgery, get their answers to the questions they have in their minds, and then convert. See? So it's easy to use technology for marketing, for conversion, if you know how to do it. And for that, we need to change our mindset completely. Our mindset needs to change completely. And I just want to delve a little bit on what is patients, what we call a patient funnel. So a lot of our activities that we use, that we are aware of in hospital management is about creating awareness. So, you know, we are busy talking about ourselves, what the kind of hospitals we run, the great surgeries we do, how well qualified I am. I'm using the latest modular OT. I have got the greatest robotic surgery in my hospital. Patient doesn't care. Honestly, patient has a problem. They want to know whether you can solve it for them. They don't care about your technology and, you know, the high-tech stuff that we are talking about. They don't even understand it. Sometimes, you know, we talk about things like, I have the best colorectal surgery department. I really don't know whether a patient really understands what is colorectal surgery. They understand that I have piles and, you know, or maybe I have a fissure. Can you treat it? So our whole concept is not about awareness, is focused on awareness, but basically we should be talking about how can we solve your problem. So there is a question of shifting your mindset on how you actually communicate. What are we doing? Then how do we engage with the patient? Can we use apps? I just gave you an example. Can we use consultation? Patients sitting in Guwahati, can they consult with you? So I'll give you some examples. Of course, we talk about telemedicine all the time. So let me show you a couple of things that we have seen which are effective. You can, first of all, digital per se doesn't work. You have to have phygital. So today the world is talking about phygital, where you have a physical presence along with a digital presence. So that is what I'm advocating today, that we must have phygital rather than going only for digital. People are not that compliant on digital alone, are not comfortable. So I'm just showing you, we can do some e-camps. And these are e-camps that we are doing, real-time e-camp happening this is an e-camp, you know, we are using telemedicine. See the number of patients that are there, they are waiting. This patient is conversing with a doctor. So this is a real-time e-camp happening. You can't see the screen here, but this is where the screen is. You can actually see that. So is it possible? Yes. Is it cost effective? Absolutely. Your doctor doesn't even have to go. They just sit there and do it. So just an example of how you can use technology to create a camp, not just in India, you can do it outside India. So let me show you a camp happening in Somalia. Just imagine, this is a consult happening in Somalia where we are running a camp and patients are coming to India. About 400 screenings were done for andrology and urology as a camp. Let me show you another video which shows more. Where are these videos? Yeah, see that the patients are waiting. There's a screening camp happening in Somalia and they're waiting to get a consultation, a screening consultation done with a doctor sitting in Hyderabad. And this is happening in real time. And can you imagine the cost of acquisition of a patient reduces dramatically if we use technology? Okay. So that's as far as the patient funnel is concerned. So can we do consultations? Then decision regarding treatment. This takes time. Patient goes back home. They ask questions from friends and others. And, you know, this is the best time for you to be able to give an app or some kind of support to the patient so that they make the right decision. And then, of course, there's admission, discharge, and then there is something called lifetime value of a patient. Now, that's something that it's a concept where we believe that the patient is only, you know, let's say if you are doing gallbladder surgery, then we say that he's only got one gallbladder. After that is removed, then there is nothing left. So that's the only surgery we can do. But if that patient, let's say the gallbladder surgery is worth 1L, and the patient refers 4 patients a year for us because we keep in touch with them through the app, we keep asking them questions, supporting them in their journey, and they refer 4 patients to us, that's 4 lakhs. And then, you know, it's geometric progression. So after a time, you will find that your cost of acquisition of patients, if you're giving at lifetime value of a patient, is unbelievable. One patient can actually be worth much more than what you think they are. So these are questions, and the reason I'm talking about this is I want you to think about these things rather than, you know, giving you some templated answers. So I told you about the use cases of technology. You can do patient consults, e-screening camps, etc. Now I move on to the last bit, which is a bit of advisory on how to use technology, especially in terms of, you know, implementation. My first advice to all of us is that please understand that every hospital and medical practice is unique. Do not blindly copy paste. So this worked in this hospital, does not mean that I take the same solution and just paste it in another hospital. Probably it will work, or it will work suboptimally. You will have a lot of resistance on the ground. So please understand that each hospital is unique, and we have, although we use the same principles, we cannot just blindly copy paste. So a lot of, when I deal with hospital management, especially C-suite people, they say we did it in that hospital, so it should work here. Not necessarily. You have to modify it. So this is my first advice. Please tailor-make solutions for your own hospital. Number two, whenever we talk about digital technology, I see a tendency among C-suite to just hand it over to the IT department. Oh, this is to do with technology. Let IT department handle it. This is a recipe for disaster. With due respect to all my CTOs and all my friends who work in the industry along with me, I also have an health tech team with me. With due respect to them, they are IT people. They are not hospital operations people. They are not clinicians. They are not doctors. They are not nurses. So they are just IT people. Handing them over a whole piece in which technology is just a tool. So for us, technology is like a stethoscope. Technology is like any instrument that we use. Ultimately, it is the user who makes the use of that. So handing over the whole process of digitization or of using technology to the IT department is a disaster, because they really don't know much about hospital operations and they struggle. So eventually what happens is, oh, this doesn't work for us. IT doesn't work in my hospital. IT does not, really doesn't work for healthcare. That's not true. It does. The only thing is, don't hand it over to IT. Next, please engage clinical staff. Implementation of IT solutions is not to do with IT and management only. It is core clinicians who will decide the fate of your IT project. So the doctors and the nurses must be part of the solution. Please do not disengage from them. And doctors are reluctant. They are a little slow on tech. Probably it's the way we are trained. We don't think tech. We are a little slow in adapting to new things that come up. It's to do with probably our training. But the fact is, please engage clinical staff. A lot of times we try to implement, even a simple solution like telemedicine. If you don't talk to the doctors properly and don't get a buy-in from them, it won't work for you. This question that you need to answer for the clinicians especially is WIFM, what's in it for me? So you have to answer that question for them, what's in it for them? Now, when I was heading Apollo, I had a telemedicine department where it was, that was old dated technology. We were using VSAT and stuff like that. It was a struggle to get a consultant to come to that room and, come for a consultation, because it's a pain for him. It used to take 30 minutes. Why should he come out of his consultation chamber to do one consult with the patient, which should take 45 minutes? Why can't he do it on his own? Today we can, but I'm just talking about the fact that unless you have clinician buy-in, we're going to struggle with, adopting technology. Please treat implementation of IT as a project. It's not the flavor of the day. It requires massive investment of resources, both from the top and also in the middle. Please do not take it frivolously. I have seen enough people trying to take it laxatively and landing up into crash landing, and then they say IT doesn't work or it's too difficult. Please ensure that everything is properly done. And one of the biggest problems that we face is that top management needs to have a complete buy-in and actually need to drive it. So, let's say, let's give an example. Apollo, it was Ms. Sangeeta Reddy and the chairman himself who drove IT adaptation, along with me, of course. But the fact remains, unless you have buy-in from the senior most people, it won't work. Very important. You must know where you're going. So plan your metrics and then collect data accordingly. People first start collecting data and then you don't know, it's called a data dump. And then, what they do is they don't know what to do with it. And they come up with all kinds of weird solutions. So you hire an analyst to do all this, probably with, from some other top consulting companies, but eventually they don't know what to do with it unless you as hospital head or hospital management, because you are the people who know exactly what is the end result that you're looking at. So make sure that your key metrics are planned earlier. This is what I want. I want to see my CT utilization rate going up from 50 CTs to 120 in a day. Is it possible? Maybe, I don't know. But that's the metric that you're looking at. That cannot be defined by the IT department. It cannot be defined by the analyst. It cannot be defined by anybody else except by you as senior management. So this is another area that I would like you to focus on. Last but not the least, reimagine your marketing. I did not have enough time to talk about marketing in detail, but that's a huge subject today in healthcare. You have to start thinking about that fact that, first of all, marketing works. Number two, we don't know anything about marketing today. We have to start from there because marketing has changed dramatically. There's a lot of noise in the environment, and you are just one more noise. How do you make yourself heard? You know that I was reading an article yesterday that Google and Facebook, which is Meta, got more ad revenue than all the TV channels combined. Got more ad revenue than all the TV channels combined. There is something happening there which you are not aware of in the healthcare world. So I would like us to look at that. I want to end my talk now. I don't know how much time taken, but this is a small quote that from Peter Elliott that is very, I think it's apt for us. The future is not someplace we are going to, but one that we are creating. The paths to it are not found but made, and the activity of making them changes both the maker and the destination. And that's what I want you to think about. The hospital will change, and so will you when you put in technology. Thank you very much, gentlemen, ladies, for listening to me. Appreciate the time.
Thank you very much, Dr. Robinson, for a very lucid and wonderful presentation. I must compliment you for that as usual. I would like to share an experience for use of technology in patient care and generating revenue and increasing patient satisfaction. When I was in UAE, we developed a system of patient feedback, immediate feedback, while consulting in OPD or in IPD or in laboratory. We installed some kiosks in the hospitals, and patient care executives were moving with the tabs in the OPD and other areas, and they used to just take feedback from patients immediate, whether just one word, happy or unhappy. The moment patient taps unhappy, the message used to go to a senior administrator, one of us, and we immediately contacted the patient's phone number comes and we immediately contact him. What is the issue? Why you are unhappy? That helped in increasing patient satisfaction a lot and converted lots of patients who were going out without getting tested, who are going lama, or who are going without procedure. But as you said, every hospital has its specific problems and it cannot be copy and pasted, which I could not replicate in any of the hospitals in Delhi because of lack of technology, lack of patients, care executives, number of enough patient care executives. And there is lots of resistance from doctors, because the moment a doctor is labeled as his patient is unhappy, the doctor also becomes unhappy. So why you are moving with the tabs and laptops and why you're taking feedback from it. So unique solutions have to be found for unique problems. I hand over the stage to my co-chairman, Professor Naveen Kumar, for his comments.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Shanae, for your excellent rendering of talk on this particular difficult topic of health economics. We as administrators, we face many issues in implementation of technology and making that embraced by all the health people in the hospital. So as the chair, co-chair said about that, doctors making them accept this technology is what is the major difficulty that we face. So I feel, the technology has arrived in the hospital area. So we have to embrace it for reducing so many issues that we are plagued with. Shana, can I ask one question to you? If you were belonging to health tech startup, what area would you choose to focus? What type of product you would choose to focus in supplying to hospitals if you belong to healthcare startup?
Thank you. That's a very interesting question. I might take a while to answer that question. First of all, I used to have my own healthcare startup. So when I started Cadex Health, it was supposed to be a healthcare startup, and we were using technology which was ahead of the curve. It still is, like all the eICUs and this dashboards and everything to do with clinical care, we already put into our system. And then we found that even the implementation on the ground or access the acceptance of the doctors and the patients was low. After COVID, things have changed. People have found that yes, this is possible. It's a reasonably decent consult, and technology helps. Both the doctors and the patients are sort of halfway there. Now, what happened last year was that when we had a dip in COVID, we saw the number of teleconsults, etc., which had really rocketed, again coming down. But honestly, I think we will never go back to what it was pre-COVID. So if you ask me, and there are so many applications that are being used. We use cardiology to tap patients in the rural areas where you can actually use community cardiology. So starting from there to managing heart failure, heart transplant patients at home. So basically, if you ask me which technology, it's difficult. But what I would like to say here is that please, when I see doctors and the IT people designing solutions or products, they're designing it for specific diseases or specific conditions, right? So if you talk to somebody, he'll say, I'm an eye doctor, I need an application only for the eye. Or I'm a cardiologist, I need something which works for cardiology alone. And it's very difficult for us to make them understand that, patient is a patient. He's just not a cardiac patient. He could also be diabetic. He could also have cataract. So please design solutions which look at the patient holistically so that you can plug and play any disease into it, rather than saying this is specific only for cardiology or specific only for eye. Because how many applications will a patient download? So one he downloads for eye, then he's got another one because he has to have diabetes, then he has cardiac. So that is the only answer that I can give to you is, we all know all the questions. People are talking about access, clinical outcomes, monitoring, etc., screening. Ultimately, it's about the patient. Try to make it as wide and as easy to use as possible. That's all. I mean, I don't have an answer for your question as you ask a direct question.
Thank you, sir. We are running out of time. So if there is any question from audience, we can take it up. Yeah. Anybody can. Dr. Ashish?
Yes, Dr. Shana Robinson, at the outside, I must congratulate you from anesthetist to intensivist to digital marketer, excellent journey. Yes, the point brought forward from you to use the digital technology to business redesigning, infrastructure redesigning, to, acquiring the customer. But, there is a resistance from the healthcare providers to invest in the digitalization or technology because it involves cost. But as I gather from you, that you have said that the cost of acquisition of a customer must be taken in mind and must be balanced with the lifetime value. Can you expand on that point slightly further for the benefit of the students?
Very important point you made, sir. Thank you. Cost of acquisition of a patient. I mean, how many of you are tracking it? Question. We don't even know what our cost of acquisition is. Now, if you are paying referrals, which, I mean, we are not supposed to talk about it, but we are paying referrals. If you are paying 15% for, let's say, a cabbage, a CABG, which is, our ticket size is 1.5 lakhs, and you are paying 15% for the referral, which is about, let's say, 15,000 or 20,000, your cost of acquisition of that patient is 15,000. And that will never come down because you are just simply going to keep on paying money. How do I reduce it? I can reduce it by making sure that this patient whom I treat today, I stay connected with them, engage with them so that they remember me for life. And then this patient, I nudge towards giving me a referral. That referral costs me nothing. Or maybe, $100 or $150 a year just for keeping the app alive. So from 15,000 bucks, it comes into 150 rupees. And that's how the cost of acquisition can be reduced dramatically if we keep our patients engaged with us. And that's a mindset issue because we believe that once a patient leaves the hospital, it's not our problem. The problem is ours. The continuity of care, the care continuum at home is now becoming so critical. So I hope that answers your question. Let me give you another example, just to tell you the cost of leads. So we are doing some kind of marketing for a IVF company, and we were looking at leads. Now we must understand lead and inquiry. There's a difference between the two. I don't want to get into details, but that lead was coming at $1,500 per lead. 1,500 rupees was the cost of the lead through social media, coming through Google ads, through Google. So 1,500 bucks is your cost of acquisition for a digital lead. Converting it, how many get converted? So let's say, you get 100 leads at 1,500, out of which only 2 convert. So your cost of acquisition is only 2 out of 150, whatever. So your numbers, you need to know these numbers very well. And the only way you can find out is if you start using digital in an effective manner. And yes, digital marketing is expensive. Please believe me, it is expensive. It is not cheap. They will tell you it comes at 2 rupees or 5 rupees or 10 bucks. It doesn't come at that level at all. Now, if it is done well, it is expensive. Number one. Number two, it is real investment. Please look at marketing as an investment. And therefore, the metric that we should be tracking is ROI. What is my return on investment on my marketing budget? So that's the second thing that we look at. We don't track these numbers in hospitals, unfortunately. So does that answer your question, sir?
Thank you, sir, for your informative speech. On behalf of SASH-2021, we request our speaker, Dr. Robinson Shenoy, sir, to accept our token of gratitude. And our chair, Dr. Naveen, sir, to accept our token of gratitude. I invite Dr. Ashwati S. Professor and Head Department of Community Medicine, Amrita Institute of Medical Science, to give memento to Dr. Paramhans Misra, sir.
Good afternoon and welcome you all to the oral paper presentation under faculty category. Teachers have always been a source of inspiration to the students. And today we have with us 6 faculties who have been shortlisted for faculty presentation, final presentation. Dear presenters, you have 7 minutes for your presentation to finish, and that will be followed by 2 minutes of question and answer by judges. And the judges for this session are Dr. Ashwati ma'am, Professor and Head of the Department Community Medicine, and Shri Abhijat sir, Faculty, Amrita Institute of Medical Sciences, Department of Hospital Administration. We have our first presenter, Lieutenant Colonel Khushbu Gaur from Base Hospital.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Lieutenant Colonel Dr. Khushbu Gaur, and a very warm good morning from Bagdogra, West Bengal. So my topic of talk is leadership is one of the world's oldest and most topical issues. And the topic of my study is leadership styles of physician in a tertiary care teaching hospital in a metropolis. As we all know, healthcare is a complex entity that merge administrative and clinical entities together. And there are 3 broad types of leadership, which I study in my this cross-sectional study was one of transactional study, where the exchange between the leader and the follower occurs, and the exchanges of reward for the work. Second is transformational study, where we seek to raise the followers' consciousness about the consequences of transforming them into a leader. And third and the final is laissez-faire leadership, where the attitude of trust and reliance in the follower has to be built in, and leader allow them to use their creativity and then help them in meet their goals. So mine is a cross-sectional study which happens in a tertiary care teaching hospital over a duration of 2 years from November 15 to November 17. It was a questionnaire-based study where 256 medical professionals, all of them were part of Armed Forces Medical Services, and the resident doctors were excluded in this study, particularly because when we are under our advanced course or the residentship, the style of leadership cannot come up to that level or cannot be shown up because the armed forces work in a hierarchical manner. So the aim of the study or the objective of the study is to determine the leadership styles of medical professionals and also to study the organization leadership styles and the practices which have been followed in the armed forces. The methodology which I have taken use there is cross-sectional study where total consecutive sampling has been used and a multi-factor leadership questionnaire, which is known as MLQ, which is validated by WHO and NHS, is being utilized. It was a self or pre-validated questionnaire 21 statements were there, which have 9 components, and all these 9 components comprises or consist of the transformational, transactional, or laissez-faire leadership factors. For the data analysis, I've used SPSS 23. Now I come to my findings. The demographic profile states that the gender distribution, 80% of the candidates who were there, part of my study, were male, and only 20% were female. The age group which has taken care, most of it, means around 75% are from 31 to 40 years of age group, and a small 10% was from 51 to 60 years old. The service experience is the experience that they are practicing the medicine, is that less than 10 years services, like around 112 people were there, which forms around 55% of the study, and more than 20% was only 35% of the people. The specialty which are considering, so most of them were the specialists. They have done their MD or MS, and around 20% were super specialists. As I already talked, I have used 2 questionnaires. The primary questionnaire is to elicit the individual leadership styles, which was a structured questionnaire, and 21 questions was there, which comprises of, or when you tick those questions, you will comes under the category of transformational, transactional, or laissez-faire leadership. And the responses will be on a Likert scale. 5 points were there, from strongly agree to strongly disagree. The second questionnaire which I've used was to elicit the organization leadership styles and practices, which was a semi-structured questionnaire where 10 questions were there, and the responses were on Likert scale. 5 points were there, similarly, like strongly agree to strongly disagree. And each question has an open-ended response. So if you want, you can give the justification that why you have chosen a particular option. This was the data analysis which I've done. So here you see in this graph, the first 4 characteristics: idealized influence, inspirational motivation, individual stimulation, and individual consideration are the part of transformation leadership. So you will find here that the blue color denotes the high structure, that how many of it, like, they're using this characteristic highly. So the first 4 has come very high, except that in the individual stimulation, the third number, which is part of the transformation leadership, there the individual stimulation has come on a lower grade. Then similarly, you see contingent reward and management by exception, which is a part of transactional leadership style, has come on a higher note. The laissez-faire was very low. So we can easily see the scenario which was present in this medical college where I was doing this study, and it's a part of Armed Forces Medical Services. The laissez-faire type of leadership was utilized to a very lower level. So the inferences which we have drawn out of this, that the junior physician are found to be more transactional, that they are working for the reward. The senior physicians are found to be transformational leaders. That means they're transforming their followers in a future leaders. The specialists who have just done their MS or MD are transformational leaders. Then they're given opportunity for their followers or the younger group or the subordinates who are working under them, the young doctors, to transform into the leaders better than the super specialists. And a very amazing fact which comes out of this study, that the females are found to be more transformational leaders than men. The second questionnaire, which was about the organization goal. So these were the questions like organization adequately prepare physicians for leadership roles. So around 66% agree that yes, the organization prepares as they provide the simulation techniques or the role play and the teamwork scenario, so that the more and more people come out and they prepare and they show their leadership styles in a better manner. But a very around 86% of people, when they have been asked that organization adequately prepare from transition from an individual performer to a team leader. So they say, they agree that yes, the organization, here I'm talking about the armed forces, which is very famous of their autocratic style of leadership, which is the premonition outside. But when we do a study in a scenario like there, where a captive audience or the captive physicians are there, and they have given opportunity to prepare or to show their individuality in a better manner.
Dr.
Similarly,
you have
I want
exceeded
to...
your, excuse me, you have exceeded your 7 minutes. So now we'll move on to our judges for question and answer round.
I'm already on my last slide, ma'am. So I just finish it off like that. I just want to, the inference which comes out that the career courses and the development courses which are there in armed forces, they have their showing up the leadership quality. And the one and the last thing which I want to put emphasis on, that the excellent mentorship is incultivated in armed forces, which is called as Esprit de Corps. Thank you so much.
So how do you define transformational and transactional leadership? Is it based on
transformational leadership is the one where there is a where we keep a thing, or we try to transform our followers into becoming leaders of the next generation. So we seek their consciousness so that they should put an emphasis on the result of the work being given to them. And the transactional leadership is the exchange between the leader and the follower, where the exchange, for example, there is an exchange of reward for the work. So that is how we define a transactional and a transformational leadership.
But you had used a questionnaire. So on the basis of the questionnaire, how do you decide?
So basically, ma'am, yeah. So there are four, the criterias are there, like individual idealized influence, individual stimulation. And those criterias has been, there are questions based on them. For example, the one of the question was there, do you have given a chance of taking a decision of your own? So the person will say, yes, totally agree, I disagree, or a fair chance has been given. And then ticking that, we have a Likert scale given on. Then the strongly agree, and every Likert point has been given a point, like 0 to 5. So we calculate that, and a total of it will fall under whether it is a high level of transformation leadership, or a medium level, or a low level. And this is a validated questionnaire, so the key of it is already available, ma'am.
Okay. So the questionnaire was given in English. It is validated in English.
Yeah, because this was, it was validated in English because my, the study group was a well-read English understanding group only, ma'am.
Okay, but have you used an inferential statistics, or is it just percentages at all?
Yeah, ma'am, when I was, this was like when I was doing this study, I read around the topics all over, and I find out a Japanese and a Korean dissertation on a similar topic. But in India, when I look around, I was not able to find out any study being confirmed on the studying or assessing the style of leadership of physicians in any of the hospitals. But one study was there, which was done in AIMS, and that was one of a student of MHA has done it, but not published, ma'am. So I contacted them and find it out. So those were the inference which I gathered on.
Dr. Khushbu, that presentation and the idea, the topic relevance was all fine. But I just had one or two points to ask you. I mean, the first point was in both your inferences, you got two sets of inferences. The first set of inference was on gender and on those kind of aspects, like and its impact on the leadership style. And the second part of the inference was an organizational impact on the leadership mode. Now, you said you talked about these as two separate inferences, but in fact, is there a correlation between the two? Did any statistical analysis talk about a correlation between these two inferences?
So the study which I have done, basically I'm from Indian Armed Forces Medical Services. So here what happened that we are doctors, and along with that we are also army men. So what happened that because of these army values, we have been put into the situations where hierarchy comes. So a person, I am a lieutenant colonel, a colonel is superior to me. So some of the time, even to putting aside the knowledge, some of the time I have to look into the hierarchy of it. So here comes comes the role of organization, where as an individual, if my knowledge has to be tested, the ranks and the hierarchy system has to be put aside. So when I am giving or providing a medical care as a doctor, my leadership style or how I will take decision administratively or clinically has to be totally based on my experience. My knowledge should not affect from the organization I'm working in. So because of it, this correlation has to study that how much an organization where the rules are like standard operating procedures are the first to taken care of, and we work in a certain manner. We are not allowed to go away from that line. This correlation has to be set in.
Okay, one last
now
point.
I'm very happy to say that the time are changing and army is also changing and giving an opportunity that we young generation doctors can also take decisions without thinking that whom I presenting my case to.
Okay, I mean the only point to close this is that it would have been better value adding had a correlation been done instead of just a percentage analysis. You know, what are the factors that influence the leadership styles? If that correlation was also there, then there would have been a little more value in the
it's a valuable advisor. I'll take care of that and I'll work on it further.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Dr. Sukhbir Singh from Pandit B.D. Sharma, PGIMS, Rohtak.
A warm good afternoon to the dignitaries who are chairing this session, to all my teachers, seniors and colleagues who are attending this session. I am Dr. Sukhbir Singh, Associate Professor in Department of Hospital Administration at Postgraduate Institute of Medical Sciences, Rohtak at Haryana. My today's topic of presentation is titled as to impact of structured training program about adverse drug reactions on knowledge of nursing students at public and private nursing teaching institution of Haryana State, an interventional study. This would be my flow of presentation. So to introduce the topic, managing adverse drug reactions remains a challenge given the increasing complexity of therapeutics, the aging population and the growing number of patients with multimorbidity and polypharmacy. Previous studies have shown that 3.5 to 10% of patients visiting the emergency department, they experience an adverse drug reaction. More than half of all adverse drug reactions, they go unnoticed upon hospital admission, and that the estimated median unreported rate is around 94%. Multiple determinants for low ADR detection and reporting rates have been found, most of which are related to the lack of awareness and pharmacological knowledge of attending healthcare professionals. Evidence confirms that training the healthcare workers can boost the ADR reporting rates. The nursing professionals are an important part of healthcare system, healthcare team, and are the main stakeholder in adverse drug reporting. Hence, this study was planned among the nursing students of government and private nursing colleges. The aim of this study was to study the impact of structured training program about adverse drug reactions on knowledge of nursing students. Objectives: first, to evaluate the existing knowledge regarding adverse drug reaction among nursing students. And second, to evaluate the impact of structured training program about adverse drug reaction on knowledge of nursing students. Methodology: study setting. It was a pre-post single group multi-center interventional study. The structured training program on adverse drug reaction was conducted at one government and one private nursing college of Haryana State. Sample and sampling. The participants included all nursing students enrolled in BSc, MSc and post-basic nursing courses in the identified government and private nursing colleges during the study period. Study tool: a structured questionnaire was prepared after extensive literature review and was validated through a pilot study. The questionnaire was divided in two different parts. The first part contained the participants' socio-demographic details. The second part had 32 questions for assessing knowledge of participants about various aspects of adverse drug reaction. Tool administration: the tool was administered digitally and the informed consent from each participant was also obtained before filling the questionnaire. The pre-test questionnaire was administered just before imparting the structured training program. Thereafter, the structured training program on adverse drug reaction was imparted to all participants on a single day through Zoom platform by different experts. The participants were given the first post-test questionnaire immediately and second post-test questionnaire after 1 month of the training session. All participants except who did not give informed consent or were not present in the training session were included in the study. Data analysis, all knowledge questions were scored. Each correct response was given a score of 5. There was no negative marking. So the total achievable score was, as we have 32 questions, so the total achievable score was 160 and the minimum achievable score was 0 because we were not having any negative marking. Overall mean score difference of pre and post test was calculated. Various inferential and descriptive statistical tests like one-way, repeat Meyer ANOVA test was applied and category-wise subgroup analysis was performed. So now the result section. And this table is showing the distribution of participants as per their socio-demographic profile. We can see that most of the participants, 70% were from the College of Nursing, PGMS Rohtak. Most of them, 56% were in the age group of 21 to 30 years. Majority, almost all of them were females. 77% were pursuing their BSc nursing course. And on place of residence wise distribution, they were almost equally distributed. 51% were from urban background and 49% were from rural background and 73% were from nuclear families. So these are the graphical representation of the data we have just discussed in the previous table. We can see that most of them were from College of Nursing. They were in the age group of 21 to 30 years. Majority of them were females. Most of them were pursuing BSc nursing course. Majority of the participants were from nuclear family. And this diagram is showing you the educational status of the participants' father. So their participants' father, majority of them were graduate followed by the higher secondary. And most of their mothers were educated up to matriculations. So we find the now in our study we have 3 groups, as we have 3 different time periods: pre-training, immediate after training, and post 1 month training. The knowledge score was calculated for all these 3 time periods. To see if there is any significant difference in knowledge score between these 3 time periods, we applied one-way repeated Meyer ANOVA test. In order to apply this statistical test, we checked its assumption as sphericity, that is equality of variance of differences between each pair of 3 time periods. So we applied macular test of sphericity for checking the assumption of sphericity, and the macular test of sphericity indicated that the assumption of sphericity had been violated as P is less than 0.05. And therefore, we applied Greenhouse-Geiger corrections along with the one-way repeated ANOVA test for calculating the mean knowledge score over these 3 different time periods. So these are 3 on left-hand side. We have shown the 3 different groups depending on the time periods. Pre-knowledge score, immediate after knowledge, pre-training knowledge score, immediate after training, and post 1 month after training. We can see that the mean knowledge score was minimum before training, and it was maximum immediately after training. It reduces in the post 1 month training as compared to immediate training, but it was higher than the pre-training group. And the
Dr. Sukhbir, you have exceeded your 7 minutes. We'll move on to our question and answer round.
So this is the pairwise comparison. We divided the time group among 3 groups and their association. We can see that the p-value is highly significant. So there is significant difference in mean knowledge score. These are the association of knowledge score with the different socio-demographic variables. We can see that the male have more knowledge among all these 3 time periods, and the p-value is quite significant. Same is with the age. The knowledge was increasing with age in all 3 age groups, and the difference was significant. Same with the college, the Prem Institute Private Nursing College was having more knowledge score than the government college, and it was showing the statistically significant difference.
Please go to the last slide.
To conclude with, the study has given insight into various domains of adverse drug reaction where nursing students performed well and where the considerable gap exists. There was significant increase in mean knowledge score among the nursing students after the training program. The mean knowledge was maximum after immediate training, but after 1 month, mean knowledge score decreases, but still it was more than the pre-training knowledge score level. Therefore, frequent training programs may be organized for imparting training about adverse drug reactions. These are the references. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Sukhbir.
Thank you, ma'am.
So, was there an year-wise difference between the different, because you have used BSc students, there are MSc students?
Yes.
Yeah. So, was there a difference in the improvement in knowledge scores between the different years?
Actually, ma'am, I calculated the education status-wise difference also, but their p-value was not significant. So I have not shown in the presentation, but I can share it with you. My screen is visible, ma'am.
Yeah, it is visible.
So I have given the details here. The first point is related to the...
Your share screen is not active. You can just say it. You don't
ma'am, with class or education-wise analysis, the p-value was 0.095. Which implies that there was no difference, significant difference in knowledge due to education.
Between the years?
Between the years, ma'am.
Okay, so the objective was to assess the impact. You have, what do you mean by, how do you define impact?
Ma'am, impact of the structured training program. Actually, it was an interventional study, and the intervention was in the form of knowledge. So we first we assess their knowledge before the training, then we provide them a training program, structured training program. We covered all topics related to aspects of adverse drug reactions, and then we immediately test their knowledge improvement, whether there is improvement, no improvement, or any other addition of value in the knowledge after training. So the impact of training was assessed in the study, ma'am.
In terms of knowledge, in terms
of increase in knowledge, ma'am.
Yeah, so that should also have been mentioned in objectives, that the impact is only in terms of improvement in knowledge.
It was mentioned, ma'am. My second objective, I am repeating my second objective of the study, to evaluate the impact of structured training program about adverse drug reaction on knowledge of nursing students.
And the first objective?
First objective was, ma'am, to evaluate the existing knowledge regarding adverse drug reaction among nursing students. Okay. We can only check the impact when we will have the baseline knowledge level before imparting training and then after imparting training, ma'am.
Yes, so the pre and post was tested.
Yes, ma'am.
And the content of the training program, was that mentioned? What was actually delivered?
Ma'am, we prepared a structured training program in consultation with the principal of these nursing colleges, and we covered all topics related to these adverse drug reactions. Yeah, it's a detailed curriculum. I can share the training schedule also with you. We are having a detailed training program of the that day.
Yeah, Dr. Sukhbir, I think the data analysis part was was more exhaustive. But I just have a couple of points to ask you. The first point is, in your objective, if I remember right, the first objective was on awareness, and the second objective was on structured training and how it's going to different. Now, is there a relationship between awareness and this structured training? I mean, is the two objectives in fact correlated? Is there a...
Yes, sir, they are correlated, sir.
Okay.
We can check the impact of training program when we will have the baseline knowledge score of the participants. Then only we can measure whether there is a substantial improvement in the knowledge or not.
So you're trying to say that the knowledge score is the parameter which talks about the awareness, right? I mean, that's what you're trying to say.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so in that way, the analysis is correlating the objective one and the second objective, right?
Yes, sir.
And the second thing which I wanted to ask you was, when you talk about knowledge score as a factor or as a construct which defines the awareness level. Is it not also necessary to explain what this knowledge score construct is about? I mean, what are the key elements that define this construct of knowledge score? Because you said you are talking about a questionnaire, and a questionnaire is a 38 element questionnaire, if I remember right.
42, sir.
42 elements. So would it not also make a little sense if you can tell what are the key sub-constructs or constituents of this construct of knowledge score?
Yes, that I am having, sir. I will share with you. It was the questionnaire covers 4 to 5 different aspects related to ADR. So, and the questionnaire was framed accordingly. We picked up questions from each subconstruct of the ADR.
And each of these subconstruct has got equal relevance on knowledge score, or the importance.
So I'm also having a question-wise analysis with me.
Okay, fine. Okay.
And that will be more exhaustive, and the time was less.
Okay.
I will share it with you, sir, if it is required.
Yeah, we will have a look at that. Okay.
Sir.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir.
Moving on to our third presenter, Ms. Kanakwali from JSS Academy of Higher Education and Research, Mysore.
Seeking the blessings of all the gurus. So, my name is Dr. Shalini. I'm presenting a topic on proactive risk assessment of discharge process using a PFME tool in a multi-speciality hospital. And the corresponding author is Dr. Kanakwali K. Kunduri. My topic will be discussed under these headings. Coming to my topic, there are two main factors. One is something called FMEA. FMEA is abbreviation of failure mode and effect analysis. It's a prospective risk analysis or assessment tool. So this is my topic, proactive risk assessment in a discharge process multi-speciality hospital. As I mentioned, FME is nothing but abbreviation of failure mode and effect analysis. It's a proactive risk analysis tool. The scope is widespread in many areas. Initially, it started in the military, US military, but at present, it's applicable wherever you want to assess the risk. I have done the study based on the discharge process in a hospital, simply because there are two reasons. One is discharge process is often neglected for any risk analysis. And second thing is one of the place where the revenue generation occurs. And even coming to quality, even the accreditation bodies, they encourage to go for a risk prioritization and as well as for any process in a yearly basis or regularly. Even the NABH or JCI, they encourage these kind of factors. My objective is three things. One is to know the inpatient discharge process and the different stakeholders involved, and proactively assess the risk involved and the RPN calculation and potential failures and its causes. The study location was in the multi-specialty hospital in South India, which is an NABH accredited 100-bed hospital. The study area was the inpatient department, billing, insurance, laboratory, radiology, nursing, and administrative department, wherever the people involved in the discharge process. And it was conducted for 2 months. So there a multidisciplinary team was selected of 26 people, which are expert in their domains. Team consists of consultant, nurses, physician assistant, pharmacists, paramedics, and billing. Data collection was like brainstorming session done with a multidisciplinary team in a regular manner, and one-to-one interview, like brainstorming session we done with the team members, showing the high-level discharge process chart. And the material used is a process flow chart, and the PFME tool, thought processing questionnaire, SOA table, and risk assessment matrix. Methodology, there are 3 phases. The study was conducted in 3 phases. The first phase was planning and preparation, where the planning of the observation for the discharge process is done for 2 weeks, and the meanwhile the multidisciplinary team is selected. In the phase 2, the commencement of study is done, where you have drawn the process flow chart of discharge process, both high level and the detail, and even the failure modes been identified with the brainstorming session with the team regularly. In the third phase, you can see that analysis, like giving a ranking based on 1 to 10, you're detecting severity, occurrence, and detectability of all the failure modes, and the analysis done. And these are the thought processing questionnaire, which been asked for use for the high level, showing the high level flowchart for each members. And coming to the SOD table, the severity, occurrence, detection, as I mentioned, 1 being the negligible in severity and 10 being hazardous without warning. And occurrence, again, remote failure is unlikely in 1 and very high failure almost is 10. And when come to detection, if you like, you're almost able to detect what is the failure mode occurring, it's like 1, and you're not uncertain, you're not at all able to detect it, it's going to be 10. And these are the flowchart which been drawn according to objective 1. And these are the failure modes. The 23 failure modes been identified, and each one according to the process, every process been taken care, and what are the possible potential failure modes are there that been identified, and each one been given a RPN, that is the risk priority number, severity, occurrence, detection. These are the tables which been plotted for each failure modes, along with the causes, what might be the possible cause, what is the possible effects, and if any present process control already existing, and if not, what is the action can be recommended for particular failure modes. This is an 10 by 10 risk assessment matrix been plotted, where only 2 factors have been taken, severity and occurrence, where you can see at a glance all the failure modes. Like according to that, if you go move on from the green to red, the criticality index is increasing. Now you need to give more importance, and where you need to proactively take care of the risk to occur further. And coming to the discussion, coming to discharge process, exactly using FMEA, very few studies been conducted, mainly because the FME, they do it for high risk category of processes or design or whatever it is. So, but here only the one of the paper where you can see risk assessment of the hospital discharge process, high risk patient. Again, there means high risk, or other type of studies conducted like intervention mapping and all these things, or readmissions. And coming to all the 23 failure modes, according to the failure modes, the actions been recommended, like efficient use of existing process control and time management between OPD and IPD timings. And these are things. Mainly there are 2 concerns were there. One is in the billing, and one is in the discharge summary finalization. So according to that, action been recommended, where 340 is being the highest RPN and 60 being the lowest, where in last step patient clears the blood. And coming to conclusion, the PFME tool is one of the proactive tool where you can use to assess any of the risk. And in this study, we are used for a discharge process and involving the multidisciplinary team using FMEA tool and thought processing questionnaire, and RPN is calculated. And being in a healthcare, it's very important to have a very safe environment to save life. So FME is one of the such tool, a quality tool where you can help to assess the risk in priority and prevent the possible risk that can happen in future. So these are the things. 320 is the highest RPN and 60 is the lowest. It's a reference I have used. And thank you, SASH, for your time for giving this opportunity. I just want to show you, okay, this is a high level process chart which have been drawn, and it is a detailed process chart. This is the FME RPN which been calculated. So here you can see that every process step is been identified with the different failure modes, potential failure modes, what might be the causes and its effects, and severity, occurrence, and detectability. When you calculate the RPN, one thing you need to know whether severity is high or like based on the rankings we have done. Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, okay, Dr. Shalini, I think the selection of the tool was right. FMEA is a very good tool that can be used in the discharge process, and there are studies where this has been applied also. Yeah, but I had a couple of points. The first point was, can you tell us what are the top 3 failure modes? You know, your study.
Yes.
Yeah, what are the top 3 failure modes?
So one more reason why they have taken like that particular hospital for discharge process, because they were facing slight issues with the billing issues and discharge. Like there is some they wanted to do RCA, but before that they wanted to assess the risk assessment. So the top 3, one was the billing finalization. So they having a problem with the billing finalization. They have a very strong HIS. So everything is more of a digitalized. Even a patient start with admission, whatever it is, you can see the timings. But a billing finalization one is getting very much delayed, either with the self-paid or with the TPA. TPA normally, yes, it has its own different reasons, but for the self-paid, it should not, but still they had an issue with that. And second thing is finalizing with the discharge summary, because without the discharge summary, the lot of other things have been involved. Like you cannot finalize the discharge medication also. So the clearance from the pharmacy will be delayed. So until unless the discharge summary is finalized by the physician, other things will getting delayed. And the third thing was after discharge, once the finalization happened, billing, everything has happened, when they hand overing the reports, they had some issues that when the patient comes for the follow-up, they are not having a proper reports with them. Like they have to give physically, even they have a digitally maintained, they have to hand over the reports physically to the patient and explain the medications, what exactly they need to do. For example, even the physiotherapy, in case of surgical cases, even the physiotherapist or dietitian is involved, they are not giving a proper communication to the patient that what need to be followed. That has not been done.
Okay, I think that you answered. I mean, I just want to add something more so that we can close this.
Yes,
actually in an FMEA, the value addition also comes after the RPN has been computed and the RPN has been prioritized. You said it varies from 340 to 60. But then should it also not contain how the RPN can be brought down? Should an FMEA not be really value adding with that?
Yes, sir. So first thing is RPN will help you to do further RCA things. Like you have seen their top, as you mentioned, you see the top 3. So you find this is some red zone where you need to give concentrate right at the moment. When you say RAM also, when we do risk assessment matrix, you see only criticality index of severity and occurrence. So this shows that this is a zone where I need to give and I have to do the RCA immediately, so that it involves even the hospital image as well as the revenue generation. It's not only about the revenue generation.
Has that been done?
Word of yes, sir. Yes. Because I have given a month of 2 months this program because I have done as internship.
Okay, Dr. Shalini.
Let's close.
Yes, sir.
We'll move on to our next speaker, next presenter, Mr. Dikhil from SGPGIMS, Lucknow.
At the outset, I want to thank you, Amrita Institute, for giving us this opportunity to just showcase what innovation we have done to improve upon the quality of nursing care as well as for the resilience of the entire nursing services system during the unprecedented COVID times in the year 2020. This is absolutely done during the first wave time. And before going through the topic, I just want to dedicate this to all the lost lives, especially from the doctors, nursing staff, and other people. Also to my guru, Professor Hemchandra sir, who is the Vice Chancellor of HHNB University, Uttarakhand. So let's move on. First of all, the after action review is a qualitative review of action taken in response to an event of public concern. It is a means of identifying and documenting best practices and challenges demonstrated by the response to the event. I think I do not need any introduction about COVID because as we all know about it. So it's the study intended. It is moreover, it's a quality improvement project. I would say it's not a deep into the research, but it's both of them look similar methodology. So I will look forward. So it's like pinpointing of corrective action that need to be implemented quickly, so as to adapt the system in a better and quick manner. So giving a little background about AAR, After Action Review, it is originally developed by the US Army, and in 1990 it was adapted into business model. BP Aramco, Steelco, General Electric Company, or this adopted this model. And in health sector, this is primarily used as a public sector healthcare problem solving tool. And WHO has recently published the ways how you can do it, and it is already available in how you can do it in WHO website. So coming to the COVID nursing service, even in SCBJMS, after we had the first COVID case in Lucknow near to first week of March and last week of December, we were getting alerted, and at 4th we the CNO madam, Chief Nursing Officer, asked me to prepare on the quality of corona ward and nursing management. And fifth, we started to work on the core corona team of nursing management, which was filled with the best nurse awardees of 2019. And finalization of donning and doffing protocol, by then it was not available. And this place, I want to thank the infection control nurses from Alapi Medical College, Mr. Janish, and Alapi Taluk Hospital, Mrs. Gracie, for helping us. And training and donning doffing started on 7th, and 20th, we got the first patient who is a very VIP, Mrs. Kanika Kapoor, you can see in the picture. And on 12th, first batch came out of COVID, and we did the after action review. And the aim of the study is simply to improve upon the quality and to improve the resilience. And objective also same, the quality enhancement of nursing services and resilience enhancement of COVID services using AR, and to recommend what we learned. And that's what we are doing right now. And methodology, it was a qualitative study totally, and it followed a longitudinal study design, and duration was nearly 3 to 4 months, and population was completely on nursing staff of SCBGMS. Sample size was for 104 nursing staff, and number of after action reviews conducted was 11. The recruitment was purposive sampling technique. We included all the first 11 COVID batches the nursing staff completed, they reported to us. And inclusion was nursing staff who completed the prescribed COVID duty and mandatory post-duty COVID quarantine period and tested negative for RT-PCR in SCBGMS microbiology laboratory. Exclusion criteria was if they had any other symptoms, we excluded them, irrespective whether they got negative report. And AR phase, it is divided into 5 phases. We have done pre-action phase where we studied and we set up the protocols. And in action phase, we taught them like this is how you have to do, and this is how the demonstration of everything was done in the action phase. And in the after action phase, once when they did the duty and came out, we did the after action reviews for them. And then we went for remedial action. And after the remedial action, we reviewed that remedial action was successful or not. And then we came back to the pre-action phase again. So in AR methodology, how we did means decision to go for AR and AR team was made. And here Chief Nursing Officer was the head of the team. And 2 nursing superintendent was there, and they followed as a troubleshooter and quality nurse coordinator. I personally conducted as a facilitator and coordinator of AR. In charge of COVID ward was there in the initial time, and 2 nurse manager who took notes and helped me in this process. And during the day of AR, we welcomed to the table and we introduced them what we are going to do. We just told them we need 3 things. First thing is, what are the problems you finished in the COVID duty and how we can solve them. What are the good practice you found out during this, initial setup of COVID care in the ward or there? You tell us that so that we can sustain. These are the 3 things we asked for them, and they came up with a flurry of good as well as bad idea. So that we will discuss in this one. And major points were noted down, and I just made them to read back to them so that they understood whatever they were trying to communicate. It was written in the paper also. This was communicated, and the problems which already solved were just excluded, and the problems which persisted, we communicated to CNO madam and other officials. CNO madam solved the problems which she could directly do that, and then the problems which she was not able to do. Okay.
So if you can quickly go to your last slide.
Yes, ma'am. So
the summary of your findings.
Yes, ma'am. The thing is, like we found 449 problems, and we found that top level management need to be involved. Then we get more problem solution, and if it is not there, we cannot. This study is in concurrence with the result of Soto et al., which study conducted.
You can skip discussion.
Yes. And you can use this study AR model in every part of our existence in the hospital administration as well as nursing administration. This is the conclusion of this study. Every part we can apply. The process, it is available in the WHO website. You can go through that and you can certify yourself. There were a lot of limitation also for this study. So it was more of a quality improvement project and it was very successful. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Nikhil. So that was an interesting area of work. So how do you justify that it is a longitudinal study?
Ma'am, we collected data 11 times, as I just...
From
nursing staff.
From the same nursing staff?
No, not on the same nursing staff. Because on the 8th, you can see on 12/4/2020, the members were 8. And these were posted in a ward. And eventually what happens means in SCPGMS, the ward was given to a hospital. It just went out from 12 beds to 230 beds. So eventually the ICUs came. The progression was going on during this time. So we got the reviews from different people in the different timeline. And there were different problems too.
That would be like multiple cross-sectional studies.
No, ma'am. I won't agree to that because the problems was on nursing system, not only on a particular point. It was about their problems like entire nursing delivery system was on focus.
So how do you think you can improve upon? You were talking to all the nursing students together. You said
no, it is not nursing students, ma'am.
Nursing staff.
It is nursing staff who have completed COVID duty in PPE kit and who finished the their mandatory quarantine period.
Yes.
And it was also differing.
Yes. So the nursing staff, you talk to them in a group. So is it a focus group discussion or is it an in-depth interview?
Ma'am, it was like everybody were made them to sit in a group in a small conference table, not a table, it was a hall actually, in different halls also. So we gave them, introduced them, this is how we are going to do AR. It's a problem solving we need to improve upon because COVID duty is not ending by single shot. It's going to come back again and again. And unless we get the problem solved right now, we cannot improve upon. We need to solve the problem for the patients. We need to solve the problem for the staffs also, and we need to get the system into a sustainable system so that the system will run very smoothly. Then they gave up their inputs. Okay. This is how they are.
Okay, thank you, Nikhil.
Thank you, Mr. Nikhil.
And last, ma'am, all the dignitaries here, and if you can repeat this study in your settings, it will be beneficial because Alpha has gone.
Thank you, Mr. Nikhil. We are running short of time.
Thank you.
Can we have the next participant, Dr. Ruchi Kushwaha from Government Institute of Medical Sciences, Greater Noida?
Good afternoon, everyone. With the permission of dignitaries, I will present my topic, a study on low-cost model of hospital pharmacy at a government healthcare teaching institute as a feed-forward measure of control. So this is how I will proceed. Access to essential medicine at affordable cost is a fulfillment of the right of highest attainable standard of health. Then why do million population will go without access of the medicine? The reason is the price and unavailability of the essential medicine. Even WHO in their many meetings has acknowledged the concern. So if we see the review, facts it 1/3 of the global population lack reliable access of the needed medicine. 10 million lives a year could be saved by improving access to essential medicines. Over 70% of the expenditure occur on the medicine in low-income countries, and 90% of the population pay out-of-pocket expenditure, and government budgets are running out of budget on spend of the medicine. And these are the 2 points this study focuses on. So various review of literature also signifies that the prices of medicines are high, essential medicines availability is low, prices are unaffordable for the poor, government procurement can be insufficient, and various distribution that involves the local vendors are so much excessive to reach the medicine from manufacturers to the end user, that is the patient. So Government Institute of Medical Sciences is an autonomous institute under Government of Uttar Pradesh, and like other medical colleges, it receives the fund for the essential medicines that are provided free of cost. But the high cost medicine, surgical consumable, implants for which there is no budget, the patient need to purchase it outside pharmacy at the various higher and variable costs. Sometimes due to unavailability of required medicine, surgeries need to be postponed, increasing the length of stay, and ultimately these all factors increases the out-of-pocket expenditure of the patient. So there was a felt need to establish such a patient-friendly system that would be able to provide the round-the-clock all the medicines at subsidized rate to the patient, and at the same time it must be self-sustainable too, so that the system can be run for a long time. And subsequent to the ample research, the concept of having a low-cost model of hospital pharmacy, as invoked at Sanjay Gandhi PGI Lucknow, came into existence. That is known as Hospital Revolving Fund, a low-cost model of hospital pharmacy, deal with the procurement of entire range of medicine, disinfectant, life-saving drugs, implant, lenses, CSSD product at a most competitive rate and provide to the patient at a very subsidized rate. HRF was designed and executed by SGPGIMS Lucknow, and it is a unique model of its own type in the entire country. Now, Government of Uttar Pradesh is applying it in the state colleges like KGMU Lucknow, Ramanohar Lohia Lucknow, Cancer Institute, and JIMS Greater Noida. So aim I have already told. Objective is to develop a patient-friendly procurement system to supply all the range of medicine and consumable round the clock on subsidized rate, and works on the principle of self-sustainability to improve price transparency of the medicine, to help hospital in becoming financially independent by reducing the need of budgetary support from government on account of medicine, forced to reduce the out-of-pocket expenditure for the patient to procure the medicine. The study was a prospective analytical hospital-based study for the duration of 6 months at the newly established hospital pharmacy at Government Institute of Greater Noida. The methodology from its inception to implementation, there are various steps that are implemented in phase-wise manner. Like from the hospital pharmacy, we culled out the medicine which were high cost and for which budgets were not provided from the government. Then provision of seed money, we have taken money from the hospital fund as a loan basis that need to be refunded back when the system reaches to break even and become the self-sustainable. Then procurement of medicine and consumable done by directly from the genuine manufacturers, cutting all the local vendors. And by doing this, the cost automatically came down because now the medicine from manufacturers reaches to the patient at the very minimal cost. Then application of surcharges to make the system self-sustainable. This is the indispensable step. We have applied to minimum surcharges and maximum to the 10%. Even many of the medicine we sold at the purchase price too. Then other step is the establishment of the peripheral counters, maintenance of daily sale record. Patient were made aware that there are type of pharmacy they can procure medicine if they wish to. Analysis was done like for the reduction in out-of-pocket expenditure, a total MRP minus HRF sale cost, application of the surcharges, and revenue generation calculated by HRF sale cost minus purchase price. So we have started the system with total 15 medicine injectable, but I took the 8 medication who were common for all the 4 months of the study duration. This is a reduction of out-of-pocket expenditure for the month of July. Actually, it is the collective reduction in the expenditure. Like for if we see the injection cholesterol, then it is calculated by the total number of quantities sold out during the month of cholesterol into MRP minus number of quantities sold out into HRF sale cost. So we could see that over the month of 1 year, total 28,000 out-of-pocket expenditure could be saved. This is the amount if patient had to buy medicine from outside pharmacy, they would have to spend such amount from their own pocket. So if we see overall for the month of July, for all the 8 drugs, total reduction in out-of expenditure was 63,000. For the month of August, it was 97,000. And for September, it reaches about to 2 lakhs, 1.95 lakhs. It was reduced in the month of October because the sale was reduced due to some reasons. And if we see the revenue generation, then we could see the revenue generation was very less because our prime aim was not to commercialize the pharmacy. It was only to patient care. The revenue generation was very less. Even we could see the for the injection hydrocortisone, it was only rupees 10 all over the month. It was only rupees 10. Overall revenue generated was 8,000 for the month of July. In August, it was 11,000. In September, 13,000. And in October, it was only 7,000. So if we see the comparatively, then in the month of August, the 7,000 was the revenue generation, but at the same time, the out-of-pocket expenditure that we could save for the patient was the 63,000. The maximum we recorded in the month of September, the revenue generation was 14,000, and the out-of-pocket expenditure reduction was around 2 lakhs. So we have established initiated the system with only 15 medication, and now we are getting the positive response satisfaction from the patients who have implemented in all over the unique concept. We couldn't find any relevant study in this field, but the Asia's largest cancer hospital has initiated the same concept in 2017. After post-pandemic, government are running out of funds, so this is a need of ours that the government-funded hospital shifted from the conventional system of procurement and become self-sustainable at least for the purchase and distribution of the medicine and consumable to the patient. Thank you so much.
Okay, Dr. Ruchi, this model was you had explained the model, but I have two questions. The first question is this model a very generic model, or is it specific to the kind of hospital, or can it be applied across the different categories of hospitals? For example, does this apply to a corporate hospital?
So it can be applied, and it is being applied in many hospitals. Like I said, it is initiated, conceptualized and initiated by Sanjay Gandhi PGI 30 years back. Now it is completely self-sustainable at PGI. Government of Uttar Pradesh Medical Education Department is implementing the same model in all the medical colleges. Newly opened medical college is being implemented. I am as the alumni of PGI, I am here to establish this model at GIMS Greater Noida.
Okay. Now the second question. Okay, fine. The point is noted. The second question: your analysis or justification of this model was based on financial grounds. Don't you think? Don't you think a right economic analysis also will need to be done to justify the model completely? Like some kind of a cost benefit or cost effective.
It's only 6 months of initiation of this model, so I couldn't analyze much. I hope so in next SAS I will give the more positive result on the model.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Ruchi.
Thank you, Dr. Ruchi.
Thank you so much.
We have the last participant, Dr. Rahul Rajan. Dr. Rahul Rajan, you are there? Dr. Rahul is actually from the Department of Hospital Administration, Regional Institute of Ophthalmology, IGMS, Patna.
Sir, good afternoon, everybody. This is a study done on nasogastric feed, also known as it's a type of an enteral nutrition which has been provided to the ICU patients in our hospital. So what happened, we had observed that there are places where errors potentiate, and those potential errors, how it could be curbed or how it could be reduced. This is one of the studies which I have done it in my institute. The presentation conduct will go like this: introduction, aims and objectives, methodology, results, discussion and conclusion. On the introductory part, these nasogastric feed critical patients who are unable to do oral intake. Despite normal digestive tract, therapeutically it could also be used ones who are suffering from under or malnutrition. Scientifically processed, hygienically maintained nasogastric feed. These are those hospital feeds which are prepared in accordance with the dietary needs of the patients. And the feed preparation till its consumption, it journeys through many transition points which are handled by various stakeholders like dietitian, cook, steward, manager and nursing officer, which are vital for them to observe closely to avoid any kind of potential errors. And these potential errors occurring in these transition points could be reduced by various management approaches and quality initiatives like management by objectives, SOP-based checklist, key performance indicators, some root cause analysis, and some continued medical education. The aim of the study was to minimize the potentiality of these errors in feed distribution, with a goal envisioned as right feed to the right patient within right time. And the objective was to study the effect of SOP based. An SOP was prepared, and that was validated by the hospital administrators and the quality manuals also. So the SOP based checklist was intervened, and it was intervened so as to minimize the potential errors. And the study of impact of management and quality initiative approaches were intervened to reduce the factors causing variation in the process of feed delivery. The methodology which was devised was a cross-sectional study. Before and after pre-test and post-test study was designed. Focus unit of the study was the 10-bedded emergency ICU and 10-bedded medicine ICU. And duration of the study, which was conducted from August till September in this year only. The focus sample were the 13 nursing officers which were working in 3 shifts in both ICUs, in emergency 13 and in the medicine ICUs 13 ICUs. And sample these were those nursing officers which were directly involved in feed distribution. Samples of those died from these were those patients who used to stay minimum of 2 days in the ICU. Total 6 feeds every 3 hourly were being provisioned to these patients. The sample size was assuming a prevalence of no error in 50% of feed. Sample size was taken as 400. Now the feed get travels to various processes like feed planning, feed preparation, feed assembly, feed distribution, and feed consumption. Before I went into this study, I had done some kind of pilot study, and I observed that among feed planning, preparation, assembly, distribution, consumption, it was this distribution part which was actually very critical to the patients and which were prone for errors, maximum kind of errors. And at this feed distribution, the nursing officers were actually directly involved in distribution of the feeds. And for that sake, an SOP-based protocols were prepared in accordance with quality standards, which were checked and validated by experts in hospital administration. And the objective was to provide right feed to the right patient within right time. As I stated, SOP, diet sheet preparation. In the SOP, there were 3 parts. One part was diet sheet preparation. One part was the inpatient dietary kitchen, which was supervised and checked by dietitian. And the last part was the ICU setup, where the in-charge sister used to check the ambiguity and punctuality of the feed being provided. So as you can see, SOP had got 3 parts. One was diet sheet preparation, means the one has to elicit the history of allergy, or one has to elicit the kind of diets which has to be provisioned at the ICU, which was being done by the nursing officer, and accordingly a diet was to be prepared as per the dietitian, which was being prepared by the cook and steward of and inpatient kitchen, and that was being supervised by the dietitian, who used to check the accuracy of the diet. And in the ICU, the in-charge sister used to check the ambiguity of the diet and the punctuality, that every 3 hours the diet are being provisioned to the patients. The errors were computed in the Excel sheet and compared with total number of feeds provided. A root cause analysis was done, and quality initiative approaches were conducted. The following were the results. The reasons for the error which were found was food allergy itself was not elicited at many times at the ICU, because sisters at the part of the sisters. Then dietitians' orders were not being also followed at times. There were some errors in that. Dietitians round did not get conducted few days. Handover takeover issue was the major issue, and the late administration of the feed was also one of the issue. Shifting of the patients and the feed being discarded. That means the feed is being provisioned at that moment. Before that, the shifting of the patient happened, and this message was not sent to the kitchen. So that was also one of the error which was observed. A pair t-test of the above findings were computed, and the following calculation. A mean was devised, 37.65, standard deviation, standard error, and the confidence interval of the difference lower and upper. We had a calculation of p-value of 0.033, which was statistically significant in this part. Now, reasons from deviations from SOP. There were some deviations, and the reasons we tried to find out through root cause analysis. These were the 5 most important: excessive workload that interrupts in the diet administration among the nurses and nurses side. Then poor handover, improper staffing, lack of adherence to SOPs, ineffective nursing report. These were certain important deviations which we had observed from SOP. And these were certain things. This data was collected from the nurses itself, their difference in age, and then sex and marital status, professional experience, time experience in the unit. This data was calculated so as to devise the root cause, and which helped in devising the root cause analysis and finding out what exactly.
Dr. Rahul, your time is up.
You can go to the last slide.
Yes, sir. Yes, madam. The conclusion of my study was the administration of the field with adequate planning, appropriately distributed assignment and work delegations, SOP-based checklist, proper handover, regular training, CME, focus group discussion, like voluntary reporting, strong commitments are imperative to produce significant improvements and help in minimizing potential error. This present study actually elucidated the significance of the various management approaches critical to the enteral food delivery process and understanding its importance in multiple ways which could control and check the adverse event. The standardizing of the...
Thank you, Dr.
Yes.
Rahul Ranjan.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, you had done a t-test and then you were trying to say that there was a significance was established. And then subsequently you followed it by saying that there is a set of reasons for this feed error, and did you find that all these reasons are significant or only some of this was significant?
Sir, there were too many reasons. Among them, these reasons, 5 reasons were found to be significant, sir.
Statistically, are all these reasons significant? What you listed there? I mean, you found that they are statistically significant. No, my question is that t-test was referring to which significance?
Sir, it was referring to these 5 reasons, sir. I mean, these 5 reasons, the excessive workload that interrupts and poor handover. There were multiple reasons, so I came to conclusion of these 5 reasons.
Can you show that t-test slide?
T-test slide. I try to do a t-test among these things, madam.
No, it's there down. It's there down. It's just there down.
Yeah. This pre-test and post-test intervention was done. Actually, I did it on an SPSS software, and with the help of the software pre-test and post-test intervention, I got this derived.
What is it the mean of?
Mean of
the mean of the error?
No.
Or is it the mean of the... Okay, let us leave it at that point. You mentioned about SOP-based intervention.
Yes, madam.
So can you describe that, the SOP-based intervention?
The SOP, actually, I came to know that at the level of the distribution, there were errors coming up. So SOP was devised on 3 parts. Like I could show it, madam. SOP was divided into 3 parts. Yeah, diet sheet preparation, inpatient dietary kitchen, and the ICU. The ICU, in the ICU, the in-charge sister checks the ambiguity and punctuality. So, madam, do you want to see the SOP? There were many questionnaire in.
My question is, were they given a training on the SOP?
They were actually made to understand the importance of this. Yes, they were made to understand the importance of these riles to feeding nasogastric feed, and we also came to know whether they are knowing the how to feed the nasogastric tube or not. After that, when they started doing the error, then on the basis of those errors, we made them understand that these are some quality parameters which needs to be adhered, and on the basis of that, SOP was prepared.
So the training constituted of both theoretical and practical elements.
Yeah, madam. First theoretical and then observing them what exactly is happening on the ground.
Okay. In the first place, you mentioned that it's a cross-sectional study. Then you mentioned that there is a SOP-based intervention. Then you also mentioned that it is a before and after. So the design, there is some confusion there. You are doing an intervention. So it means it is an interventional study and it before and after. So then it is not cross-sectional. I just wanted to point that out.
Okay, I think the basic issue in the presentation is that there are so many tools, and for each tool a different analysis you have tried, and there is where that confusion comes up. For example, if you try to relate a t-test to your conclusions, we are finding it a little difficult. Okay, so that's fine. Thank you. Right, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, judges. The results will be announced in the valedictory function. Now, may I request Dr. Prem Nair, Medical Director, Amartha Institute of Medical Sciences, to present the mementos to our judges, Dr. Ashwati S. Ma'am and Abhijat Sir.